The following is a conversation with Steve Dodge. Steve Dodge is most well known for being innovative and industrious within our great sport of disc golf. He's designed Maple Hill, built the MVP Open to what it is, started media companies producing DVDs in the early 2000s, starting the Disc Golf Pro Tour just so he could see his daughters on the weekend more regularly, pushing Vibram, a rubber company, to make discs, and ultimately starting a board game company with his brother Todd, Boda Brothers, creating the game Birdie. This conversation was so informative and in-depth and intuitive and fun. We absolutely love Steve, and as we say in the podcast, we don't just love Steve, we loved his vision, and we are willing to go down with him. And for this reason, I think today's conversation was one of my favorite. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy Steve Dodge. Steve Dodge, thank you for doing this. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Terry. I'm very excited about what it is that you guys are building.
Well, Terry and I, we kind of never really think we're building anything. It's kind of, we'll just shoot it out there and see what happens. Hopefully you get a birdie or two. But I think you're a perfect person to talk to early in our experience here, just because, Steve, as long as I have known you, you've been maybe the top of the list of people I've known that has just put it out there no matter what anybody says. Win, lose, or draw, you're willing to do it. The first question I have for you is, what foundation was it that you had in your life? Maybe it was your mom or somebody in your family or friend that gave you the conviction to just go for it all the time.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Nate. I think you meant that as a compliment, and I will take it as such. My mom has told me sometimes, she hasn't said this all the time, which is interesting to me, but she told me that sometimes she tried to raise me with confidence. And so she tried to instill in me a sense of confidence. And I think it was purposeful, the way that she said it. I feel like all parents are going to try to do that, and she might have tried to do it more. I do not know. But then later she said, no, she didn't do that. So who knows? But I do remember you probably had sports people on your walls in your room, or maybe Yo-Yo Ma. I had a poster that I swear my dad stole from work. It said, all things start with the same two words, I'll try. And that, staring at that every night for 12 years, there's a good chance that had an impact on me.
Well, let's also talk about a few things in that. Out of all the guests we'll probably talk to throughout potentially hundreds of episodes, not only are you likely to be one of the most forthcoming, you're also one that we know maybe most intimately or have worked with probably more than most. I mean, there's inventors and the historians and the pillars of the disc golf community, all of which you are, but you're also one that the players and us have had probably the most some of the most closest ties to. And when I think about one of the stories that I'll tell quickly is that a few years ago, I shared with you and I said, every time you would call me and your name would pop up on my phone, I instantly would smile. And it's always because I knew we were about to engage in some kind of conversation. And it definitely, where it started, was going to be nowhere near where it was going to end. And once in a while, or most of the time, I should say, there was a sprinkling of actual business in there, some kind of real idea or real thought. But yet we could go off on the rails in 1,000 other directions in that duration of that phone call. Well, when it comes to you either recalling stories or sharing things and just being overall a storyteller, and then therefore maybe an entertainer, where does that come from? What ties? How does that happen for you? Because it seems like you recall or make stuff up very well, better than most. Where does that come from?
I like to preface things by saying, according to my memory, because I will go ahead and trust my memory, and people will point out, by the way, that's not how it happened, and that's fine. I'm having a good time here. How did I become a storyteller or an entertainer? I have no idea. I would say my dad was an entertainer. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was willing to try just about anything. He didn't mind looking goofy. And it's interesting because in our family, my brother organizes things as much or more than I do. When the family gets together, it's a coin toss who's going to be the one that makes the chart to see who wins the most games for the weekend. My brother, he had a Flag Day party every year. Like, he picked Flag Day as his holiday, and he's like, that's my holiday. Everybody comes to my house. And so I think it's in our blood. We just like to entertain. I have come to the realization that I get joy by making other people happy. When I throw a party, when I build an event, when I give a gift, anything that I do, I want other people to experience joy and happiness and being social, and that's my driving. That's my reason for being. And I actually pushed. I didn't want to accept that because it feels like I don't get things as much, but I literally get by giving. And I've come to accept that. And that's so, whenever we come up with a new event at Maple Hill. So for Thursday night, we're going to have a game trailer there, and we're going to have pros come, and you're going to be able to play video games with pros. We're doing that because that's something I think would be super cool. And I'd like someone to do that and invite me to that party. So, I just want to make other people happy, and disc golf has been my avenue for that.
Well, let's talk about disc golf. Obviously, that's the underlying theme here, but we're always interested in the origin stories of where you found it, what brought you into it, the discovery of it. And I'm sure that's been discussed with you a number of times, but we're going to have a lot of new viewers here taking this all in and getting to know so many of these pillars of the community. Bring us back to flight, Frisbees, ultimate, all of the different things that probably culminated in you arriving at disc golf, or just overall Frisbee throwing.
I want to start. Do you guys know, I think it was Jim Palmieri's book, and he pushed back against the idea that Frisbee was founded by the hippies. Do you either of you know anything about that?
I wouldn't say that I know anything about that part of the book, but I do know of the book. In fact, we talked with Stork about that book a few weeks back, and Jim was definitely one of those early pioneers. I think I would have to listen to whatever he had to say.
100%. And that's I wanted to start there because I saw a Facebook post about, hey, if you thought Frisbee was started by hippies, you're wrong. And I'm under the impression that Whammo purchased a lot of extra, and I promise I'm getting to the answer to your question, Terry. Whammo purchased a bunch of plastic to make hula hoops. And then the hula hoop fad went way down very fast. And so they asked Steady Ed, who worked at Whammo, and all of this is according to my memory of things that I've heard. So who knows? And they asked Steady Ed, can you find a use for this plastic? And so Steady Ed invented disc golf, because with Ultimate, you have 14 people using one disc. And with disc golf, you have one person using 14 discs. So disc golf was born, and they said, let's make a whole line of discs. And that was a way to literally move that plastic, and move it off the shelves. But maybe fly it off the shelves. Can I be clever?
Yes. I like that.
You're always clever, Steve.
My apologies to all the listeners that were already there, but it took me a little while. I'm old. So anyway, that's how disc golf got started. It was founded by a company that wanted to sell plastic. And so there was some pushback against the idea that the hippies founded the sport. I want to push back on that pushback and say, for me, hippies introduced me to disc golf. Hippies were drawn to the disc. A lot of those hippies were in the physics labs of colleges. A lot of those hippies were not in those physics labs. I mean, I think being a hippie has nothing to do with whether you're in college or whether you didn't go to college or whether you are old or young. It's a state of being where you play with honor and you accept others where they are, and that's basically it, in my opinion. Anyway, the mothers in Fredericksburg taught me the game of disc golf. They then taught me the game of ultimate, and they taught me the idea of giving back and so anyway, they taught me the game. Specifically, a guy named Kevin Tiernan introduced me and my roommate Jay Bowler to the game. My second throw with an arrow, which was one of the two golf discs at the time, flew perfectly straight right in between the trees I was aiming at, and I said, "Okay, I got it." And I became pretty good at the sport pretty quickly. Not Nate Doss level, but Steve Dodge level. And so I liked the game very quickly and played in Virginia States, from the 80s on, and can't wait to go back next year at the 50th anniversary. And so those are the guys that taught me the sport. And those are the guys that taught me, and gals, that taught me that, the culture of the disc, the Spirit Award. And in my opinion, I'll go ahead and say, I'll go on a tangent for you, Terry. One of my big concerns with starting the Pro Tour was that the sport would grow too quickly and we would forget the culture of the disc and the Spirit Award. I'm constantly, not constantly, whenever it comes to mind and I have a free moment, I push to keep the Spirit Award in disc golf so that we remember our roots. I think that is I actually believe that's the reason our sport has grown so consistently, because the people that play it are drawn to the spirit of the game and the culture of the disc and playing with honor, and acceptance. So that's just me.
I love this tangent, and I think obviously the Pro Tour's a lot longer in your story than where we're at right now. But just to ask you a quick follow-up to that, I mean, do you think disc golf has grown too quickly, or has it grown too quickly in the last 5 years? And has some of those things been forgotten, in your opinion, obviously?
I don't think it's grown too quickly at all. I want everybody in the world literally to play disc golf. And I want the culture of the disc, which came from the hippies, in my opinion, to be embedded so deeply in the sport, we can't lose it. I think there's always work to do to spread that message. But no, the sport hasn't grown too quickly. I just want to make sure we keep spreading that message.
Yeah, I find it very interesting because obviously, even with the Whammo story, where there's this combination of business and trying to get rid of the plastic and all those types of things, like, you still bring a business into culture, right? And that's really what the Pro Tour did. It had to make money, it had to pay its bills, and so on and so forth. Eventually tickets had to be sold. I mean, when I was at my peak and before, final nines were a thing because they just wanted to have the people who were playing in the tournament be able to watch the top 4 players in the tournament play. And that has all gone away, which is fine, and I'm totally good with that. But boy, just really, really interesting to hear you say that. I mean, I completely agree, and in fact, I would say it's almost one of the reasons why Terry and I are doing this. Is I think we're at a crossroads right now to where we're still close enough to the start that we can talk to the people that were there at the beginning, your Stork Roddick's and people of that era. Of that era. And so that's why we're doing this. I'm so glad you said that. I want to just take one step back. Now, we know Maple Hill as being in Massachusetts. but you're talking about Virginia. So what's the time frame here? You in college when you're learning all this, and where did you go to college? What was your degree? Were you an athlete before this? Okay, keep going, Steve.
So I went to Mary Washington College. I grew up. I was born in Texas, grew up in Pittsburgh, and then went to Virginia for college and stayed there for 15 or 20 years. And I went to college at Mary Washington College. Fantastic community here in Fredericksburg. Some of my favorite people on the earth are here, and that's where I learned the sport and stayed in Fredericksburg because I just loved it. And then I knew that I wanted to retire at Maple Hill, which was the family farm. We literally went there every summer for a week or two, and for me, it was heaven on earth. Mike Trapasso started a disc golf course called the Grange. Now it's called the Blockhouse, and it had never. So I think of a lot of things, but I didn't think of this. It never occurred to me that you could build a disc golf course on your own land and make it a private thing like that. In the early 90s, that wasn't a thought. But Mike Trapasso did that, and he planted that seed. And then when I would go to Maple Hill for the next dozen years, that seed grew. And I was like, okay, we need to make a disc golf course here at Maple Hill. Interestingly enough, right as I was learning disc golf, my cousin Jason was actually building pyramids right across the street from Maple Hill. And we both got into the sport independently, which I find fascinating. So, for how small the sport was in the 80s, we both found it and independently. That's just kind of, maybe that speaks to the type of people that we are, that we would hang out with, the type of people that teach us disc golf. Was I a good athlete? Not at all. My senior year, I did letter in soccer, but primarily because I was a senior. I do have a very funny track story that takes about 3 minutes if you want to hear that. I did not letter in track. And then when I started playing disc golf, the game just kind of felt natural, felt right to me. When I slid over to Ultimate, I became pretty good at Ultimate as well. And I wish that I had played Ultimate from the time I was 12. Like that game spoke to my soul. The fact that you, on offense, you really want to run really fast, and on defense, you have to run really fast. It's nonstop. And I just loved it. But I do want to tell my track story because it's really, really fun. So on my track team, I wasn't very fast and I couldn't run very long. So and
you're not very tall. We're just going to state that too. I don't see you in the high jump, long jump, triple jump, hurdles.
No,
okay, go on.
There's not a lot of room for me on a track team. Okay. If the guys need water, maybe I could do that well. But so they slotted me into the 400 and the 800. And I feel bad for my coach for even pretending I was going to run those well. Also, milk was my favorite drink at the time, which is maybe not even the best thing. But so I don't remember the order, but I would run the 400. And then after the race, I would run behind the bleachers and throw up because I ran too hard. And then about 20 minutes later, I would go and run the 800. Now, there's two guys on the team that were very, very good, and they would win. They'd get first and second at basically every meet. So the best that I could do is third. And that was if I beat the entire other team. And so I think we had like maybe 12 meets, and you had to get 12 points in order to letter. And no, you needed more points than that. But because I was a senior, I only needed 12 points. That's it. And going into the final meet, this is 100% true. I remember this crystal clear. Going into the final meet, I had 7 points. So 7 of the 11 matches I'd gotten third I had 2 races each, whatever. So I didn't get, I got third like 3 or 4 of the times in both of the races. I was equally bad in both. And so we're going into the final meet, and Rich Sides and Tom Gill, who were the or Todd Gill. Sorry, Todd Gill. He's probably going to listen to this podcast. Yeah, that was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will.
So
He was just waiting for it to drop.
so they said to me, Steve, if you get first in this last race, you will let her. And they said, if you're with us at 600, we will drop back.
What?
Dang.
Serious? I got goosebumps. I have goosebumps.
Wow.
This is high school. This is high school. These kids are doing this for me. And now I was 100 pounds soaking wet. I'm just eclipsed the 5-foot club. And these guys are telling me, if you can hang with us for 600, we'll step back and let you win. And so normally on the first lap of the 800, I do like a 53, 54. No, I'm sorry, 63, 64. And then I'd maybe do that again if I was lucky. So we ran the first lap and it was 58. And I was just like, I guess I can do this. And we get around to the 600 and I'm right there with them. And we're miles ahead of the other team. And these guys step back. They kind of literally step back, but they don't. They probably just slow down. And so then I'm ahead. And so at 680 or 700, one of them says to me, "Take it home, Steve." And I'm like tearing up telling this story because that is such a nice thing to do, except the fact that my body had never run that fast. And I didn't, and I literally had no more in the tank. And you know how lactic acid builds up in your muscles and all of a sudden they flat out will not go. And so I was like stork stepping it the last 100 yards, herky jerky. And the other team zooms by us. And then my two players just sprinted and won the race. And I ended up getting dead last. And so I did not let her in track my senior year.
And it
That
sticks with
says
you
a
to
lot.
this day.
But seriously, imagine being a mom watching that race, just being like, what's going on right now? Because they slowed down with me. When I started to jerk, they were just like, he'll figure it out. Nope.
Somebody put the jumper cables on him. We'll get him through this.
I mean, you got to hand it to those guys. I think you said it right, man. In high school, just to even, I don't know, for them to even think to do that, and that they were still so good of athletes that they could, in the last 100 to 150 yards, still pass the other team.
Yeah.
And they still
they're like, we're nice. We're not that nice.
They were probably very fresh at that point because they were going at my pace.
Right.
So
Right. They had a lot left to give. They had a lot left to give.
Well, Steve, in here in 2026, there's endless 3D printers and otherwise. I think we need to print you a letter and get it on display for you, because
I didn't earn it. I did not earn it. I should not have gotten it, and I did not get it.
So very much individual sport there, kind of trying to act like a team. I want to go back to you and just ultimate, because you talk about spirit of the game and culture and all that. I feel like that is more so brought about from your ultimate, involvement, right? And of course, ultimate being so special that for decades it was completely self-officiated. So tie in like your ultimate experiences of being on a team and what that meant to you, and then what did or didn't translate over to disc golf.
So I love starting from your question and then going backwards. What I'm trying to do is run out the clock. So, you guys at some point will have to eat or sleep or something. So I'm just going to try to run out the clock here.
Or not drink milk. Well, yeah, one of the two. We'll beat you there.
So let's go back to high school. And I was playing on the varsity team in my senior year. And Tim Mulvaney and I were fullbacks. The other team hit the ball over our heads, and they had a player that sprinted past us. It wasn't hard to run past me, but Tim, whatever. So we give chase. and this guy's dribbling the ball towards our goal, and he's got us by about 10 yards, and he's obviously going to get a wide open shot on the goal. And Tim dives and grabs the guy's ankle before he gets inside the 18. And the guy goes down, and Tim gets a red card, and they don't get a goal. And our team is going crazy, happy that Tim saved a goal. And I remember not understanding that I should be happy. I was like, we literally cheated. Like, there are rules, and we broke them on purpose. And our team is happy about that. And I understand in sport, the goal is to win. I get all that. But this did not feel right in my soul. And so it was probably literally at that moment that soccer lost me as a sport. And I finished out the season. I did my gosh darn best, but it didn't feel right that you would cheat on purpose to gain an advantage. And that just did not feel right to me. And then I'm introduced to disc golf by a bunch of hippies in Fredericksburg who they played Ultimate also. And the spirit of the game and the culture of the disc was 100% a part of the disc golf world in Fredericksburg. It is not something that I brought over from Ultimate to disc golf. It was taught to me when I first learned disc golf, and then later reinforced when I started to play Ultimate. And it's deeper embedded in Ultimate to be sure, because it was self-officiated. I actually remember playing, as you get older, you get a little slower. And I remember playing defense against a guy, and I started to put my arm out a little bit because he was just running circles around me. And after I did that, like the second or third time, he said, "Hey, you're using your arm to block me." And I looked at him and said, "I'm very sorry about that. You're really fast." and I stopped doing it. But I really appreciated that he just called me on it and said, "By the way, you're being an ass." And I was like, that's a valid point. And so maybe that might have been my last year, but just kind of step off the pitch or the field of glory. But anyway, so in Fredericksburg, I had this sincere honor of becoming Mother Superior, which is the coach of the Fredericksburg Ultimate team. The Mary Washington is the mother of George Washington, so our team is called the Mothers, and the captain is Mother Superior.
And it's not the Mother Huckers.
It is not the Mother
That seems
Huckers.
like that would be the appropriate team name, but go on.
It's actually, the acronym is the Fredericksburg Ultimate Club Mothers. So that was the acronym, and I had the honor of being Mother Superior for a couple of years. And when I started playing Ultimate, because I'm very competitive, for me, I'll admit this, I wanted to win the Spirit Award. I wanted, not me personally, our team. I wanted our team to win the Spirit Award. There's 23 teams here. We're all competing in this weekend-long battle. And I'm pretty sure we're not going to win the tournament. But I want to win the Spirit Award. I want people to see that we compete with honor, that we accept people exactly where we are. We make right calls, and we don't cheat. And we did. Most of the time we would win the Spirit Award, and that was who we were. And that was very important to me. And I purposefully tried to win the Spirit Award. And as I progressed through my Ultimate career, it wasn't purposeful anymore. It just happened because I became that person, and I started to compete with honor. Not because it was the right thing to do, not because I was going to get accolades, just because it was the only thing I could do. And that filled my soul. And that was where I said, okay, these are the sports for me. Ultimate, disc golf, anything to do with a disc. The sports are born out of the hippie culture. The hippies latched onto discs and said, watching a disc fly is really fun. So after playing Ultimate for several years, the concept of playing with honor and competing being recognized as the person playing with the most honor stopped being a thing for me. And that was, I didn't notice that transition until I was done playing Ultimate. And now it's just who I am, and it is my soul. And I have to thank Ultimate for giving that to me.
I could not agree more. And I would also say, as a parent, I think your parents should be the most proud of you for just that. I mean, just that alone. I'm just thinking about with my own son, if he could be a competitor, but also respect not only the sport that he's playing or in the business that he's in, or the other people that are a part of it and doing it the right way. I mean, I don't know. I think about one of my favorite athletes of all time, which is Jack Nicklaus in golf. He was the ultimate competitor, and obviously he was a part of the business of golf as well. But he seemed to be so respectful of the game and of his fellow competitors. And just hearing you explain that, Steve, it's like, I feel like some of my lowest points in my life have been when I didn't do that. Maybe not even the lowest points, but the things that I regret the most, say being in a close battle with somebody, or in an event, that I just couldn't look past my own success. And I couldn't just respect that somebody else was succeeding in a better way. So, wow. I mean, what a great story. And I can only hope that continues on in many other ways.
I'll share a story. My brother and I invented a game called Faceball. We probably did this in our late 30s. And this game, we've all done it where you no, it's a different game than that. It's just called, well, you'll figure out why. But we go up to Maine and you jump off the dock and the other person throws the ball to you and you catch it. So that's a fun enough thing to do. But Todd and I realized the really fun thing to do is to throw it so far out there that you maybe can catch it, but maybe can't. And my dad always said in football, if the guy touches the ball, he should catch it. That we all know that. Mm-hmm. And obviously, it just flips off your fingertips. You don't have any chance, but you should have caught it. We know that. So my brother and I playing the game's called Faceball because invariably you're laying out trying to catch the ball and your face just smacks the water. Yes, thank you, Nate. So that's where the name comes from. But we developed in innings. You know, you throw the ball 3 times and that's the top of the first, and we'd play 10 innings, and you got a point for catching it, and the other person got a point if you touched it and didn't catch it. And if the ball was not catchable, then you got a point anyway. So as you're jumping in, you either get a point for catching it or for not touching it. And then if you touch it, the other person gets a point. And my brother and I are so honor bound when we play games and sports that if we can't catch it, we would do everything in our power to touch that ball. And one of my favorite highlights in Faceball, and one of Todd's favorite highlights in Faceball, was when I was the game was tied in the bottom of the 10th, and I threw the ball up, and Todd, like, it was way too high. It was stupid high. And Todd went under the water, and then the ball landed on the water, and I knew I had lost. And he came up triumphantly and said, "I touched it." He as he was going under, he did like a scissors kick, and he kept his hand above the water just enough. And he's like, "I touched that ball." And he was exultant in his loss. And that's who we've become. And it's super duper fun. I would much rather lose with honor than win driving away knowing I cheated. Of course, it's silly to even think otherwise.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if a ton of our listeners are that versed with Ultimate. And I don't want to drive it, into the ground or anything, but what do you feel like are some of the ways that Ultimate is, helps drive that, or maybe even calls or decisions or things that happen where you feel like, oh, there's an honorable way to do this and a dishonorable way to do this, or there's a stand-up way and a not so stand-up way. Is that just making your own self calls? Like, what are some of the instances or scenarios?
So,
And
hey,
how do you
everybody,
teach that is the follow-up that.
my mom is here. Mom, do you want to step in for a second?
Yes.
Terry and Nate are interviewing me.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Great
How's
to
it going?
see you.
Great to see you, too.
Awesome.
We're trying to figure out how Steve turned out so good, but I guess we know the answer now.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I mentioned something earlier, and we can see which side she goes on the fence here.
Okay.
Mom, when you were raising me as a young pup, did you attempt to make me confident?
I think so.
Confidently
go.
spoken.
All right. So 2 out of 3 says yes.
Okay.
And I'm saying that because you've said yes, no, and yes to that question.
Yeah, my goal was to raise independent humans.
Okay.
I like that. Yep. That's the goal.
And independence certainly can lead to confidence and vice versa. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. That checks out.
Cool.
It does.
Yeah,
And is that for me or for you?
that's for you if you want it.
I do want it, but I'll have it later. I don't want to get on a sugar high with these guys. My mom brought me down an ice cream bar.
Oh, man.
And we know how you love ice cream.
It's a sign of honor that I'm not eating it right now.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Thank you.
Nate, I feel like you asked a question and I sidetracked it.
No, you didn't at all. And in fact, I think Terry was talking about continuing with
Specifics.
Ultimate. So keep going, T-Dog.
Yeah, just like specifics of when you're talking about honor and you know how people would view that, and then the follow up to that even is how do you teach that? How do you teach somebody, hey, don't be a dick?
Well, when I caught Audrey cheating in the first time that I caught Audrey cheating in a board game so that she would win, we immediately stopped playing and we went upstairs and we had, I don't know, a 7 or 8 day conversation about how wrong it was. And as far as I know, it didn't ever happen again. Pointing out to someone that driving home in your car after cheating and winning, like, you cheated. This person right here did not win because you cheated. All the other people might think you won. That's insignificant. What matters is what this person thinks. And if you didn't win, you didn't win. And all you're doing is you're making the world a worse place. Add positivity to the world. Don't add negativity to the world. That's very simple.
My thought has always been, and again, I'm a huge golf fan. I always have been ever since I was a young kid. And in golf, there's a fear that being called a cheater is worse than cheating itself. And you see these guys, especially nowadays, they'll just stop playing. They'll wait for an official to come over. They'll make absolutely sure. In fact, I believe it was Justin Thomas at some point in the last year or so, he touched his ball with the club and it moved slightly in a bunker, and he stopped and he called over the official, said, I moved this ball. They said, okay, they replaced it, which was a millimeter away, and he took a stroke penalty. And it's like the fear of being called a cheater should be, and I'm not for capital punishment or anything like that. That's a whole nother conversation, I guess. But my point being is that it's like being a cheater, that's got to be the worst feeling, driving home winning, knowing that you didn't put your foot behind your mini or, something like that. Or, you got these pencil whipping people but maybe they get a high driving home thinking, boy, they didn't realize that I bogeyed that hole versus parring it. I don't know. But to answer or to try to even touch on Terry's question, it's like we have to keep the culture of keeping everybody, holding everybody to the same standard, right? Yeah. As a community, as a culture of our sport, to say, look, it doesn't matter if you cheat, you win some, you lose some. There's a tournament next weekend. There's another shot upcoming, another hole upcoming. I feel like we can do that as a community of people, within our game.
Driving home after cheating and knowing that after winning and knowing that you cheated is a short-term gain. There is a possibility that you have some positivity at that moment. But I apologize. That moment does not matter. What matters is the moment later on in your life when you look back and say, am I proud of who I was? If you can't say yes to that on your deathbed, then I'm sorry, you should have done things differently. And that, to be completely honest, that's what I'm working towards. When I'm laying on my deathbed, I want to be able to say in my heart of hearts, I tried as hard as I could. I competed as honestly as I could. I loved as much as I could. And I'm satisfied. I'm happy with who I was. That moment at the end is the only moment that matters, because if you're not happy then, you missed.
Yeah. What's it all for, right? I mean, at that point, you're saying everything so perfectly, Steve, because even, I just turned 41, and I've had, over the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years since being away from playing disc golf, I've had so many thoughts about my career, and I try to tell the young guys, I say, like, enjoy it now. Enjoy everything you're doing now. Enjoy the honor of being in this position, playing disc golf, playing something that you love, doing anything you love, I guess I should say, because eventually it's going to go away and you're going to have to find something else that you like. Yes. So doing it the right way, the one time, there's no do-overs.
Right.
I think doing it the right way, that one time you have to do it, is going to pay off in the long run, like you're saying.
So, to directly answer your question, Terry, when you play Ultimate, as I suspect you know, it's self-officiated. So, if you pick somebody so that they can't run by you, in football, that's a great play if you can get away with it. In Ultimate, you call yourself you call the pick on yourself. You just say, "Oh, I didn't see you running by there. I'm sorry to pick you," and you just say pick. And the other guy could call it, but 9 times out of 10, when we were playing, the person that did the pick calls it. It was unintentional. It just happened. When you go up to catch the disc and your foot lands out of bounds, you just say, out of bounds. You just put the disc down. These are, I hate to use this word, obvious things to do when you're playing sport. There are rules. You play by the rules. Now, having said that, there's some of the rules in disc golf I have troubles with, and I remember having a debate with Dixon Jowers about foot faults, and I was like, "You're 5 inches away. What does it matter?" And Dixon convinced me that my position was wrong, that it does matter, primarily because if you foot fault, number one, you're not thinking about it precisely about where your foot needs to go, and that gives you an advantage. Presuming you did it by accident, and that gives you an advantage, even if you didn't mean it, because you weren't thinking about that enough, and the guy who doesn't foot fault was thinking about it enough. And the sport is you put your foot there, not anywhere near there. So, and we actually ended up making a podcast about that where I argued with him and lost to make the point that he was right, because he was right. I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, I was going to say why I have you on the topic. Where are you in the idea of, say, an official for disc golf, like with each group or something to that extent? Like I was just explaining, golf has marshals, but generally for a tournament, there's about 4 of them, and it is mostly self-governed. But what's your thought on this this idea in disc golf having a referee?
I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea. The sport is growing. The media is growing. Sometime in the next 10 years, there will be a contract from a media company who's putting in probably millions, tens of millions of dollars to broadcast disc golf live. Like, I believe that's going to happen. when that happens, we have to have all of this dialed in. You can't have Ricky 8 feet in front of his lie chainsawing trees down and saying, "Is that dead?" And I appreciate Ricky putting out a video, kind of making fun of himself, saying, "What I did was wrong. I'm sorry," which I think was his intent. And he did it. I think he was gracious in dealing with that. But that kind of thing can't happen. We need to have a system in place where the marshal on the card is comfortable saying, "Dude, that was wrong." And we're not there yet because we're all still friends, which is wonderful and weird. But to answer your question directly, I do not know the answer. I am open to having that conversation and figuring it out. And I think that's what we as a sport are doing and need to do. I currently, and I'm going to say this is my current position. I'm wide open to being wrong and having my opinion changed. My current position is if you're going to apply marshals, I would do it to at least the cards that could win. If you need to be fair, I don't want to just do it on the lead card and have somebody in the chase card win. I don't want to do it on the first 2 cards and have someone on the 3rd card win because they literally played under different conditions. So that would be that's like my baby step towards having marshals. The other way to do it is to just tell the players, if you want a marshal, just call a marshal in and a marshal will walk with your card. I don't know the right answer. We currently don't have the money or the training to have enough qualified marshals there. So I don't know the answer.
Terry, I want to hear your opinion on that too. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, immediately when I think about, you ended by saying training and or money. Of course, all of that costs money because then you turn around and say, you can't expect a volunteer with full integrity and the knowledge and the background to just show up and say, "Oh yeah, I've got 60 hours to donate to you this weekend." That may, largely impact what's going to happen on an outcome of a tournament. So you're looking for someone that's paid. And then, as you said, Steve, it's so difficult with everybody, so many people being within the industry, whether you're friends or not, there's always going to be this perceived conflict of interest, even if it's, isn't there. And then one of your other points that is difficult is just the subjectivity of saying, well, the person that has a chance to win, or could realistically win. When Gannon or Jaden Rye, somewhat recently is coming from a 3rd or a 4th card, it's 3rd and 4th card. I don't know if there's just a hard number where you're cutting off and say, okay, you're 7 strokes off the lead. I don't think you're going to come back. And Evelina Salonin's like, well, wait, hold my long drink. I'm going to come back and win this in Kansas City, from 7 or 8 behind. So, of course, I know you're just, giving some light parameters, but no matter what even those parameters are, it's going to be really difficult to address it all. I like the idea of rotating. I like both angles. I like the idea of marshals that hang out in a 3 or 4 hole stretch because they can become very familiar with those 3 or 4 holes. But I also like the consistency of being one marshal with a card because they're seeing every throw by every player and then they can apply the rules accordingly. So I see both sides of that as well. I think it's all part of our learning curve and growing pains. And I hate to generically throw challenges and tough things under the growing pains category, but they are. It's exactly what they are. We're a sport that's only 50 years old, kind of unofficially, officially, and we don't have it all figured out yet. And I think a lot of sports that are as complex as we are still have, it's understandable that we have some of those gray areas and difficult decisions to make. One thing I kind of want to follow up on along that's still within this conversation is, Steve, have you talked to or interacted with any of our non-US competitors when it comes to rules or rulings or just even the tone and demeanor that I feel like a lot of international players take when rules calls come up? Is it maybe in your kind of, okay. And what I'm describing is I feel like when I'm out there on a card watching, we'll just say 4 MPO players, and 1 or 2 of them are typically Finnish, but 1 or 2 of them are for another country. It feels like there's a lot less, and I know this is cultural, but there's a lot less emotion. And they walk up and they just almost immediately, I feel like, are that's in or that's out. And it's like, it's so much more cut and dry. And I think emotions and even friendships, and I just feel like so many more times it's just that it's a decisive moment that's made. Not saying there's never times that you have to get really close, but and I feel like, and I'll stamp this with saying, I feel like if there's ever a decision that's in their favor or out of their favor, they'll take the one that's out of their favor more often than not. And maybe to your guys' point about you never want to be accused of looking for an advantage or of cheating. And it's just a very, very interesting dynamic that when you watch our international competitors, both MPO and FPO, that's something I notice out on the course is it's like, you're out or you're in. And there's like, it's almost like they're just, that's it. Let's move on. It's close. I'm out. I'm just going to call myself out.
I love that you said that. And I suspect we all have the same opinion. 98 times out of 100, when someone says, is this in or out? You can just look at it and go, it's in or it's out. You just know. And culturally, we're uncomfortable saying, hey, Nate, you're out. Move. Let's go. You want to give a little credence to the fact that Nate is feeling sad. And so you have to go, that's close. You're out. I mean, you have to.
Right.
So that's all that's, I suspect, all we're doing. There is a little bit of the charisma factor. Wait, Nate's going to get really, really mad if I do something here. Maybe we will call him in. That happens too. I appreciate, if it's Finnish or Estonian or whatever it is, I appreciate anybody who can just be straightforward and say, this is the answer. Why are you asking? And I will agree with you. I've seen people where it's close and they just say, forget it. I'm just going to say it's out because I don't want to have any negativity around me. And it would be coming from me to me. Like, I don't want to have that as a part of my game going forward. So I actually, as a TD, I've had to make dozens of calls, and at the beginning, calling a world champion or a touring pro out was really hard. 2004, 2005, it was really hard. 2006, it got really easy. I don't know why. I just made it. Something flipped. The disc was there, and I was like, okay, that's out. It doesn't really matter who you are. I'm sorry. And let's move on. And as long as you make the call and you're right, it really does not matter.
And then you have a world champ challenge you on some text and or verbiage on a T sign or in a caddy guide,
Paul
and that itself becomes news, right?
He said, "Hey, I got the call wrong," and I said, "Dude, take a provisional. That's what they're for." And he did, and I'm really glad he did.
That I wanted to bring that situation up while we're talking about it, because you are a tournament director. You TD one of the highest profile events every single year out there at Maple Hill, and that moment on hole 8 with Paul, what was that like interacting with somebody of his experience and obviously notoriety, and how that moment went down for you?
I don't remember having any emotional attachment to that conversation. I remember saying, you went out, you go to the drop zone. That's the way it's played. And he said, on this sign, it says something different. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about, because I hadn't proofed the signs well enough. And so I said, if you have a question, just play a provisional. It's very simple. And he did. Yeah. So from my perspective, it was very cut and dry. I know the rule, and unfortunately, I didn't know the rule on the Pro Tour sign, but I know the rule, and so I made the call. And if you have a problem with it, just play a provisional. This is very simple.
Yeah, I guess I asked that question because, I mean, I've had so many interactions with Paul, as a competitor, competing against it. And one of the things that I really respect about Paul is that he will push back, but
Yeah.
always with respect.
Yep.
And I think what we were alluding to a little bit earlier about this respect for the sport and the Spirit Award, I think Paul doesn't get a lot of respect for this trait because he's so good.
Right.
And he's just, he's the man, 6-time world champ and all that. But I go back to an event, the World Championships in Portland, I believe it's 2014. And we were playing this one hole where you had to throw over water late, and Paul threw into the water. And we walked up there, and there was a spotter. And Paul's like saying, "Oh, so did I cross? Did I cross over?" And if he didn't, he would have had to walk all the way back to the tee pad. And I remember jumping in, and I said, "Hey, none of us have a view on this. This guy did. Did it cross in?" And he said, 100% no. And Paul said, okay. And he walked back to the tee pad by himself. He threw his next shot. And of course, he went on to win that world championship in an epic playoff against Ricky. My point being is that, and this, maybe we can wrap up. Well, we can talk about rules as long as we want. But my thought on this situation is Paul is a great example of accepting the outcome and not letting it affect anything else. Paul never once, for the rest of that round, the rest of that tournament, we played every round together till the end, did he say, "Oh, try to get back at me somehow"? Right? I mean, he never did that. He just went on with his life and went on with his game, and eventually he won his world title. That's what I'm trying to promote is people to accept the rulings that happen, what right or wrong. We can have that conversation, or take a provisional as you offered to Paul that time. But the times that we need a ref is so small. It's such a small, say you throw 200 shots in a tournament, you might need an ump or a marshal on 3 of them. I mean, 3. You're going to have to pay somebody to walk with every card to see 3 out of 100 shots potentially. You just have to have the players want to respect the game, want to respect their fellow competitors so much that they would rather just say, hey, I'm going to stop. I'm going to call for that marshal, whether they're watching those 4 holes or there's 6 of them out there. We get somebody to call them in. They say, okay, no, you're out. You're out and play on, whatever, versus having somebody sit there and watch. And right or wrong, the Champions Cup last year with Kristen and the footfall and all of these things that happened, later in that day, we had Andrew Marweed foot faulting on camera, but nobody called it on him. I mean, my point being, you cannot see every single foot fault. You just can't. They happen. It's a part of our sport. Sometimes the player doesn't even recognize it, okay? And so we just have to live in a world where we respect our sport, respect our fellow competitors, to make the best call, and if they can't, call in a marshal and then let them decide. But you can't always rely on the other players. You just can't. And they don't in golf. They really don't in golf. One guy's 50 yards over there, the other guy's 40 yards over there. They're not looking if he touched the ball. He has to call it on himself. So I don't know. That's my thought on it all. But I think Paul, to his credit, is one of the most respectful people when it comes to rules, but also respectfully pushing back on them.
I will agree 100%. And when I told Paul he was out, and he said he thought he was not, he thought he should go play from a different lie, there was no animosity. It was just a conversation. There was no, hey, you're being an ass. It was just, I see the rule this way, you see the rule that way. And yeah, I don't remember any animosity coming from Paul ever in my life. And it's funny that you said he at Maple Hill, I don't think he's won the Spirit Award. And maybe that's his fault because he's always in the top 5 and you want to look to the guy in 20th. But it is kind of funny that is the case, and perhaps his success has hurt him a little bit, because you tend. Jeremy Colling won the Spirit Award and the tournament one year. I think he also won the all around, because we had all the extra games back then, 2014. But you tend not to look at the guy winning the tournament for the Spirit Award.
Yeah, I think to me, it's the ultimate victory to be able to be the Spirit Award winner and the champion.
Yes, it has happened once in our history.
Yeah, and Big Germ. I think Germ does a good job at living the spirit of our sport. Obviously, everybody knows his personality, but he's also a great champion, and he's won that tournament and won that Spirit Award. So very, very cool.
Steve, obviously so much conversation and then so much history with regard to Maple Hill, voted and regarded as, the number one course in the country. And it has been up in that area of accolades for ever since I think we've probably seen the UDisc rankings come out and then some. Let's talk a little bit about the development of that course. You mentioned how you went out there and then saw the property, and it was already family property, and your cousin was building something across the street. You've told me a number of things throughout the years that have stuck with me with regard to the design and the elements. But in case somebody has somehow lived under a rock, kind of set up what is Maple Hill and the vision that you've had and how it's come to fruition out there.
So the first thing I have to say is thank you to everybody. We're number 5 in the world, number 1 in the country. It is a ridiculous honor. I go out to Maple Hill and I see all the warts. And it's really nice when people point out how beautiful the property is, because I sometimes forget how beautiful it is. And I genuinely appreciate all of the comments that we hear saying it's beautiful. I also appreciate the comments saying, hey, there's a stump over there you guys should get rid of. So bring all those comments. But I did go to Ola in Sweden, which is currently the number 1 course in the world. And they actually have the number 3 course on the property as well. And I played that course with so when Duke and UNC are 1-2 in the country, any given night either one could win. If you're in the top 20 of courses in the world, I kind of feel like any given day you could be number 1. That is wrong. Ola is better than Maple Hill. I went there. I felt like, okay, our ratings are going to be about the same. It's just a toss-up. No, they have so many better amenities. The course is so well kept. They have a disc-tac-toe game just always set up. I'm going to do that. Vince, I'm stealing that idea. So it was they have a really fun little putting course, which isn't even mentioned when you talk about these other courses. So I'm going to be stealing a lot of ideas from Vincent. He's welcome to keep stealing ideas from us. But we are going to push, and we are going to try to overtake him sometime in the next 800 to 900 years, which is about how long it'll take. But it was really, really fun going over there and seeing disc golf in Europe. I hadn't done that ever in my life until this spring. And hats off to what they've done there in Sweden and in Finland, and I presume Estonia. I look forward to finding out because they've done a really, really good job. And regarding Maple Hill, in 2003, I was getting married, and after we got married, the plan was to go to Maple Hill, and I would retire with my new wife, and we would have a family, and disc golf would be our future. And
what are you retiring from? Before you keep going.
Well, I worked for the government as a mathematician for 6 years, and then I started a compact disc brokerage. So if you were a rock band, I've always loved music. I've never been good at music, but I like listening to music. If you were a rock band and you wanted to make 1,000 CDs, you would come to me. And my first step, I tried to start a record label because I'd go to the bars, I'd hang out with all my friends who were musicians and hippies and Frisbee players. And I was one of those. And, I don't know if I'm I feel like I might be an honorary hippie, but I don't.
You're a hippie at heart.
Working for the government doing math. You don't sound like a hippie. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, fair.
I really try, but anyway, I'm a Frisbee player, so it works out. But I told my friends who were in the band, the Sore Losers, I was like, I want to start a record label and I want you guys to be my first band. And they said, awesome. And I said, I'll pay for the CDs and then we'll sell them and we'll make money. And then we'll do another label, another band, and it'll be great. And I gave $3,000 to some cocaine addict in Maryland who didn't make the CDs. And then I figured out, how do you do this? And so I did it myself. And then somebody else said, hey, Steve, could you do that for me? And then I realized, hey, there's a business here. And if I don't snort cocaine, I'm actually going to make money. So, and so I did that. And so that was my business. And by the time I left in 2003, I think we had 5 or 6 employees, and 3 of them bought the company from me. And then I moved on, and tripledisc.com was the name of it, because we made compact discs, DVDs, and golf discs, or ultimate. It was probably golf discs, ultimate discs, and compact discs at the time. So that was our triple disc. And so then I toured the country, went and played like 150 of the best courses around the country with the purpose of going to Maple Hill and building something as good as all of them. And the 2 things that I learned, I probably learned a lot, but the big things that I learned were you need tees and signs. If you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter how good the next shot is, you're irritated when you get there. And that, back in the 2003s, that happened a lot. And then the other thing was, it's more fun to throw downhill than uphill. And I'm a very bad course designer. I've tried to design 3 courses, Maple Hill being obviously the best one, but the list of people that have designed at Maple Hill is very, very long. So while I'm probably not a good designer, I'm a good listener. And Gage works with me, probably every week. We go out and look at the course and what should we tweak, and I'll come up with an idea and he'll say, that's actually a very bad idea. We'll do this. And what I'm actually doing, I don't plan it, but I'm actually just prompting him to think about things in a different way. And then somehow it works, but 9 times out of 10, my ideas are not good when it comes to design work. But one thing that we did do at Maple Hill purposefully is after you hole out, 9 times actually I'll say 17 times out of 18, you walk uphill to the next tee. And if you walk 5-10 feet uphill to the next tee, you've gained well over 100 feet in elevation. And people like throwing downhill more than uphill.
Yeah, that was one of the number one takeaways that I always thought about. Then you told me that many years ago. And then I, of course, I think of the course in my head and I'm like, oh yeah, downhill, yeah, downhill. Like just that overall premise. And then to try to utilize the land so that you could find those spots to be able to even do that is obviously a challenge in itself. Now, one of the things that makes,
I want to pause you there real quick. Sorry, Terry. But Tom, my cousin who owns the farm, he knew that land like the back of he'd lived there his whole life. And so when we were designing the course, probably very similar things happened where I said, hey, let's throw over this pond on hole 1. Everybody thought that was insane. But then Tom knew from there exactly where to go because he knew all the land. Like John Houck goes and walks the land for a week before he even starts to design it. Tom walked the land for 30 plus years. So having him by my side when we designed the first layout it was probably 90% him.
Okay, so to follow that up, one of the things that makes Maple Hill, so many things do, but one specifically is the variety. And not just in the individual shots, I'm talking about the individual layouts. And that I feel like is something you've been so you've actively promoted and been such a champion or a pioneer of. Talk about the different layouts, how they come about, what they mean to you and what they mean to the property.
So when we started the course, it was the Airplanes and Elements, which is this is back in early 2000s. So we had basically equivalent of maybe a blue diamond mix and a white. That's where our levels were. And it was for Jason, Tom, and I, it was really, really fun. But most people are not 980 level disc golfers. So Maple Hill, the first 5-6 years, we had tournaments there. People loved the course, but nobody wanted to come play it because it was so hard. We started to turn things around when the Reds were built. I'm going to say maybe 2010, 2012. When that easy course was put in, people could come and play the easy course and look at the hard course. They didn't have to get beat up. Now, I will admit, now it's kind of fun 20 years later, because now we'll get people from all over the world who have no right to play the diamonds and golds saying, I'm at Maple, I'm playing the golds, and I'm going to get beat up, and then I'm going to go have my barbecue, and I'm going to sit there and lick my wounds because that was tough. So it's kind of fun. It kind of went full circle where people were now coming to play the golds, even though they shouldn't be. But back in the day, especially all the locals, nobody wanted to come and play that course. They wanted to play an easier course. So when the Reds came in, the course started to be successful. We had the gold course, and then we had the women's gold course where we changed like 3 or 4 of the holes. And through the creation of the Pro Tour, I realized the women are very underserved in our sport, and we need to give them as different a course as we can to make the game similar. And I can go into detail on that. I've thought way too much about it. But so we ended up making the diamonds, so we had the diamond and gold, which are the tournament courses. And then we have red, white, blue, which are I call them the daily drivers. You have your beginner, your advanced, and your regional pro. And so that's how Maple Hill works. If I was going to build a course that was not going to be a touring course, I would just do red, white, blue. It's plenty.
Well, I think that's, and I guess I really just wanted to shine light on that, and feel free to expand, is the fact that most of the world, unless you watch a few vlogs here and there, most of the world is only familiar with your championship caliber courses. That's
Correct.
What's been on coverage. That's what's been on the Pro Tour. And that's that's what we know. But to go out there, I mean, I think one of the staples of the red course, I think, is that at no point do you have to even throw over water.
Correct.
Right. Whereas you're playing a gold or a diamond layout, you're throwing over water multiple times throughout. And on a red course, you are at no point forced to. So I think that's just good for everyone to even just put in their back pocket, is like Maple Hill in its glory might be those 2 courses. However, there's so much more challenge and variety and skill that is out there.
Yeah, we went out of our way to make the short course, the Reds. It's probably about 5,000 feet in length. So maybe 270 feet, 250 feet average hole length. And as you said, no water carries. White is probably around 5,500 feet, and there's one water carry. It's 250 feet. So we've been very thoughtful in the step up. And if you start playing the Reds, you start shooting 3 and 4 down, there's a really natural place to go. You'll shoot the whites and shoot 3 or 4 up, and you shoot that until you get 3 or 4 down, then you go do blue. And we've also been very purposeful on hole 1. If you're standing on the tee of hole 1 red and it looks too easy, go play white. If that looks too easy, go play blue. Hole 1, this doesn't work on every single hole, but hole 1 is purposeful. And it's very easy to just tell someone, if you're standing on that tee and it looks too easy, then it is. Go do white. And if you're standing on the diamond tee and that looks too easy, good luck. Go back to the golds. So if you come to Maple Hill, just stand on each of the tees. And I would actually say do this. Come 20 minutes before your tee time. Stand on each of the tees and just feel it. They're really thoughtful, incremental steps.
Did you thoughtfully build the course from outside in, or is that just the way that it happened? In the sense that it took it sounds about like 8 or 9 years before the Reds even existed.
It was, I would say 7, but
Okay,
yes,
7 years.
That's not much of an argument.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a while, and it wasn't until probably 2000. Who knows what's actually right? But I'm going to say 2013 to 2017 before we started the idea of, hey, we should have red, white, blue in our championship layout. But at that time, it was just the gold, and then there were a couple of women's holes, and then I think it might have been as late as 17 or 18 when the diamonds came around. But red, white, blue was thoughtful and purposeful once we had the thought. But initially, we didn't have the thought.
Yeah, I guess I asked the question is because my first time coming to Maple Hill was 2010, and I remember over the time from 2010 to say 2018, that 9 to 10 year stretch, like things really didn't get much longer. I mean, you certainly changed the angles of things, but from 2010, the first time I was there, hole 1 was right up there by the road. I mean, you can't go any further back on 1 without going, say, to across the street. So
I'm going to push back a little bit, Nate.
And maybe it did a bit.
When you started in hole 1, the basket might have been just over the pond, but I think it was probably by the wall.
It was by the wall.
It was short of the wall.
The basket. I know. I guess I'm talking tees.
Well, I want to.
Go ahead.
Both are true, but on hole 1, the basket then moved into the woods, and then it moved into the woods and to the right, and now obviously we have the Mando. So it. I don't even know why I'm pushing back on that.
No.
Because your point that it didn't really grow much?
Yes. My point is that I felt like, so I showed up in 2010. I had been told by multiple people, mainly Avery Jenkins, but dude, you got to come. You got to come. And for a long time, and I'd love to have you elaborate on this, a long time, your tournament wasn't a PDGA tournament. It wasn't really on my radar because it wasn't PDGA. It was always post Worlds, which for me, anything after Worlds didn't really matter until the USDGC. But in my world, but like it wasn't PDGA and all these things. But I show up in 2010, and it's like already stretched out. It gets really long. Yes, you made some pins. Because I would argue that 1 is not that much longer. It's just more difficult because now you have all this OB and stuff. So I think for course designers, and you said yourself, you're not the best course designer, but the idea of designing from the outside in, thinking about what your longest possible hole is.
I see.
Before you then go up and do the short one.
No, we did not do that.
Okay.
We designed 18 holes that we wanted to play.
Okay.
Actually, hole 1, I don't think anybody but me wanted to play. But and hole 1 used to be from the short tee to just over the pond, and that to me, well, back in 2004, that was a revolutionary hole. That is 350-foot water carry. That's stupid. To start the course, like even stupider. But we just designed the course, and there was very little thought to how long can this course be. It has gotten longer in some places, but in general, like in 2004, we were probably a very long course on tour, and we were probably 8,000 feet. And now we're probably 9,000 feet, and we're a short to middle course. And we've grown a little bit, but everything else just went kapow.
Yeah, the first time I ever actually saw your course was on video. It was on a DVD, and I was sitting in the back of my friend's minivan. We were driving from Cleveland, Ohio, to Toronto, Canada, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to put this DVD in of this." Maple Hill tournament, like it's not PDGA, but and you're doing the commentary, Steve, and Bobby Copperthwaite, you had your your whole thing with Bobby, but take me to those earlier events, which obviously now we see this incredibly difficult championship to win and just so well known worldwide. Take me to those early events. Why non PDGA? And then ultimately, when was the idea to produce a DVD of the tournament?
So I'll start out by saying Mike Swayze did the old Bobby Copperthwaite, and a tip of the hat to him. He is a Boston DJ who listened to the 2004 DVD and said, "Steve, you need help with audio." And you guys, right before we began, you know I still need help with audio. So my apologies to everybody who hears my gravelly voice and it's distorted or whatever. Although at this point, that'd be your fault, I think.
Yeah.
Terry, is that your...
Yeah, I'm pressing buttons as we speak, just to EQ right here.
Jack up the volume. So as luck would have it, and I do believe a lot of my life has been fortuitous, I started a compact disc company, and by the time I moved to Massachusetts, DVDs were in our wheelhouse. And so I was very comfortable with the idea of designing every aspect of a DVD, from video editing to sound editing to designing the lead-in pages and all that jazz. And obviously having it replicated and the graphic design. But so I knew right off the bat, I was like, that we need to get the word out about this event. At the time, Worlds, I feel like, was still on VHS. It might have been a DVD, but
it was close.
It was,
I think by 05 it was on a DVD.
DVD, yeah. I don't know about 04, but either way. And I just knew, okay, we're going to put out a DVD, and I wanted to do it every year. And unfortunately, Nate, we stopped in 2011, which I don't remember who won that year. Nate.
That's another show. That's another long talk for another day.
Yeah, we got to wait until John Duzler's on that. We'll have that conversation another time.
I do remember your shot on hole 17, and that's the reason the tee moved back. So hole 17 was a par 4, and this kid from California shows up in the last round. I don't know how many you were ahead by, but it's 550, 600 feet. And then it turns to the right and goes downhill a little bit. And Nate's drive goes right into the mouth of the woods and skips 3 feet to the right of the basket. And it was like, wait, he almost aced a par 4. He went 40 feet past it. Did you deuce that?
I think I missed the putt.
Okay.
I was too worried about 18 and getting on that island that I probably just overlooked that one.
So you ended up with the birdie, like everybody else, and you could have got the ace. It was like I was watching the video of that shot, and I was like, oh, that's the greatest shot I've ever seen in my life. So kudos to you, and I'm very happy to have your name on our plaque. And I have no idea what the question was.
DVD production and filming and
the early days. The early
putting
days.
it all
You stopped
together
in 2011.
So back in the days, Jason never. I can't say never. There were moments when Jason didn't like the PDGA.
Jason being your cousin.
Jason Southwick, your cousin.
My cousin Jason Southwick.
Lives across the street and runs another course.
Who owns Pyramids. He and I started Marshall Street Disc Golf together from 04 to 07, which is why the tournament was the Marshall Street Disc Golf Championship. In 2007, he wanted to focus on the store and I wanted to focus on the tournament. So we parted ways. And saying it like that makes it all sound wonderfully amicable, which is probably the best thing for me to say at this point. But back in those early days, the PDGA was a thorn in our side more than somebody who helped us run tournaments well, and we didn't always like being a part of the PDGA. Having said that, I do think from like 2008 on, we were a part of the PDGA. So, and like we were A tiers and N Ts and all that jazz. And in 2016, the Vibram Open was the first and last national tour and pro tour event. Anyway, we can talk about that. We'll get to that probably in hour 5. So the DVD just came straight out of triple disc, and and my knowledge of knowing how to do that. And then the PDGA was mostly from Jason not respecting or liking the PDGA. We actually have a really fun Michael Jordan, Larry Bird parody ad on YouTube. I bet it's still there, where Jason and I make all these trick shots. They're edited. They're not real trick shots, but we make all these trick shots. And then, and Jason says the first one to miss has to run for the board of goofballs. And so I'm the first one that missed, and I ran for the board of directors, and I served 06 to 08. So
I want to see if this story is true. I'm sure it is, but I want to confirm it with you. In those early days, as you said, at Marshall Street, was it the Marshall Street Open? What was it or was it just called Marshall Street?
It was the Marshall Street Disc Golf Championship.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Marshall Street Disc Golf Championship. In those early days, you're producing these DVDs. You sent a cameraman with every single card, or was it?
Almost.
Okay, I want to hear that.
We had
part of it.
14 cameramen.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Jason and I bought, I want to say, 3 good cameras and 3 mini DV cameras consumer cameras. And then we had 8 friends that had cameras. And then I went online and bought like a 200 pack of mini DVs. And we were very organized, truthfully, and everybody's labeling, what round and what card. And at the end of the tournament, we had just over 80 hours of footage.
Wow.
And I spent the next 2 months watching all of that footage, notating when there was a good shot or bad shot, a heartbreaker, a lucky whatever it was. And that's why that DVD has all those extras on it.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of those. Because people asked, how are there so many good putts at Maple Hill? And the answer is, we filmed all of them and just showed you the good ones. Like, if you cover Nate Doss enough, he's going to get it in, at some point. And Terry Miller, too, although not quite as often. So we had 14 camera operators. I watched the 80 hours, notated everything, and then broke it down. We didn't do hole by hole. To this day, I think that's a little boring. I want to hear a story. I want you to tell me, okay, Justin Jernigan is making a run on these 5 holes, and at hole 12, he is tied for the lead. But on hole 13, so I wanted to do more of the storytelling. And so I tried to do that. And also, as the tournament got closer to the end, I'm only going to focus on the 2 or 3 people that have a chance. Similar to what you're doing on live. I mean, we all grew up watching live sports, so I felt like the DVDs should play along to that. So, but that's why we made the DVDs, and they definitely had an impact. I've had 3 touring pros tell me the reason they started to take the sport seriously was the DVDs. And that, if I had a cap, I'd put a feather in it. That made me feel really good.
Yeah, go ahead, T.
I was just going to say, I still own some of those DVDs as a collector and a consumer and a hoarder, like getting those things to maybe resell, but also just to have at a certain point, because all we had were VHSs, and they usually only came out once a year, and it was 6 months after Worlds happened. Like I can't say this enough to the newer people that might be still listening, that we basically had one tournament a year. It was the Worlds. It was filmed. Not until the final 9 did you see every single shot. It then was edited, some at the time graphics, present day graphics, along with post-production commentary, all just to come out and maybe be available for Christmas after the August World Championships. And that was the goal. That was like, let's have this duplicated and available for Christmas. We are doing 100 times better work in less than 12 hours now, and that's technology and everything else, every single weekend,
Right.
mind you. But anyway, so having those DVDs was such a big deal, having anything, and then Billy Crump doing what he did and having his series, and then Hot Shots and all these other things that kind of spurred the media production. And it was obviously so crucial to you. My question, or it's more so even a precursor to that, is at one point I got a postcard.
Yep.
And explain again, as we're all getting older, explain how the invitations and the postcards came about. Who got those? How'd you get those? The success. Just give us the story of the postcards.
So I'm gonna go back again a little bit. Actually, no, I'm going forward this time. I have a Whatnot show now, and I'm going to be doing. Actually, they'll probably all be done before you get this out. I'm guessing, because June 6th is my last show. And so I'm going through my basement. I'm going through my mom's basement. I'm going through my brother's basement. I'm getting everything together, and I'm literally going to have a 12-hour show. And Terry, you're invited to be on that 12 hours, Nate.
I'll check my schedule.
11/11 to 11/11. And I've got just over 500 discs. And I shouldn't say discs. They're all sorts of stuff. But one thing that I found when I was unpacking all this, I found 2 postcards from the 2004 MSDGC. And it's the postcard that we sent to everybody on the PDGA mailing list.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if you want to come play a really special tournament, we're having one here at Maple Hill. You've never heard of us, but you should come. It also had the line, it said, save money on car insurance, spend money on disc golf. So it still fits.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, those postcards, we just mailed those out to, I don't even know, 10,000 PDGA members, and some of them came to play our little tournament.
Yeah, I believe that I got one. But then on maybe, was it the second year that you did them, did you just mail them to like people that won B tiers and above or something like that, right? You had some threshold.
We were
probably didn't want to pay all the postage. Yeah. Like, we don't want these 900 rated Yahoos over here.
Are you saying that you did get one the second year?
I know I got one, and I don't remember which year, or maybe both years, but I know I got one. And for a hot minute, it was on my fridge, and I just remember thinking also, like, what is this, right? Like, I was maybe early 20s, and I was just like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. And at the time, there was still print ads, and we were getting a Disc Golf Journal or a Disc Golf Monthly or a Disc Golf World News or whatever they were. And so you absolutely had a unique perspective of just inviting people to the property. And I know Jay and Des Redding often reference the postcard, getting a postcard,
absolutely,
and being like, what are we gonna? Okay, yeah, let's go to this wacky tournament that nobody knows anything about. So those were some of those early days.
I'm just going to give we're an hour and a half in. I promised that I wouldn't give any hints to people on how they can do things better until an hour and a half in. So now is the time. But if you want people to participate in anything, whether it's to be on the world's greatest staff at the MVP Open or to come play a tournament nobody's ever heard of, invite them. That's really what it's all about. When I was Mother Superior, we basically doubled the number of people playing. And the way we did it was by inviting people to come play. And every week, you just say, hey, you should come play. I'm busy. Every week, you should come play. I'm busy. Eventually, they're not busy. You wear them down. It works on girls, it works with Ultimate, and it works with disc golf. So it clearly works.
See, now the secrets, this is why we're going so long, because the secrets are now coming out, Steve.
That's right.
I mean,
that's payoff.
Just keep at it.
So I just real quick want to dig into a little bit more on the value of the media and what did you see? And was it purely just promotional? Was it archiving purposes and historical? Where was it that you were aligned with recording and then putting out these things?
I'm genuinely not very smart, and I'm going to prove that with my answer. I wanted to I'm sure promotional was part of it, But I'm also very confident. I wanted to make a DVD because I knew how cheaply I could make them, and then I could sell them and make money.
Okay.
It's costing me $2 to make, not counting any of my work. It's costing me $2 to make these DVDs, and we're selling them for 15 or 20. We're going to have so much money. It turns out you make 1,000, you sell 200. It doesn't quite work out the same, but you know. So, and
you are a mathematician, Steve.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm actually still selling those DVDs,
Right.
and on June 6th, they will all be gone. I've got about 12 left.
Well, with inflation, now those things have cost you.
They are now, with inflation, they're worth about $6.
So you had a capitalistic, vantage point
Yes.
in terms of just trying to turn the profit on them. Maybe just dive then into a little bit more about media and its just overall importance to all of our disc golf development.
So my, as I've said earlier, I tend to be lucky. I do things maybe for the wrong reasons, but something positive comes out of them. So the media, the attention that the DVD gathered in the right circles was definitely an important part of the tournament growing. I'd like to think somewhere in my head that was a thought, but I know that my real thought was $2 in, 20 bucks out, $2 out, 20 bucks in. This is easy. But that obviously it worked a little bit, but not enough to matter. But we did get a lot of attention, and a lot of players got attention. Because you see, for the first time ever, outside of Worlds, there's somebody else doing something in a disc golf tournament, and that's pretty darn cool. But now media, it drives the bus. Without disc golf media, the tree falling in the woods, nobody cares or hears. And in fact, I don't know if this is where you're going, Terry, but in 2019, media is the reason that I'm not running the Pro Tour right now. So everybody should be thankful for media for that.
What do you mean by that? I mean, first of all, I got to say, this is the second time I've heard you say it, that you're very lucky in life. I've heard a lot of people say that. We always have, you hear the cliche, luck is a combination of opportunity and skill. Because, they'll always say champ love or whatever, the better, Gannon Bird's the luckiest player out there. Well, it's opportunity and skill coming together. I also feel like in life, when people say they're lucky, it's their ability to allow the bad things or the shitty things to not really slow them down. And I think you've done a really nice job at that, Steve. I mean, I want you to elaborate on what you're talking about from 2019. But then that also led to you opening Boda Brothers and getting the game going and doing all that other stuff. So you didn't let the thing that knocked you back define you or define that time of your life. And I don't know, man, that's a little bit of that luck actually being controlled by you. So I just wanted to say that. I believe that as truth. But what do you mean? What do you mean? 2019 media?
So
what are you talking about here?
I'm going to forget that we're talking about 2019.
Sure. Okay.
Because I'm going to go on another really fun tangent.
Fair.
Fun to me. My apologies to the listeners. But there is a movie called Outsourcing. And don't watch it. It's really not very good. It's fine. It's fine. But the movie is about a guy who travels to India to head up a call center. And so he's an American traveling to India to head up a call center. And there's a small amount of sexual tension between him, or romantic tension, I should say. It's not sexual. Romantic tension between him and like the girl that runs the call center, who he's kind of training and maybe replacing, but more training. And they go on a trip somewhere, and she's showing him the culture of India. And one of the things they do is they throw money into the little fountain where the god of destruction is. And I don't remember the name of the god of destruction, but it's one of the gods in one of the religions. And he's like, why would you give money to the god of destruction? Like, that isn't that just going to cause things to go wrong? And she just smiles at him and she says, you give money to all the gods. And that's just how our culture is. But the god of the destruction is the one the movie focused on. And so then their car breaks down and then it starts raining. And then they find a hotel, but the hotel only has one room and it has 2 beds. Take it easy. But then they spend the night together talking all night, and they obviously fall in love. And the implication is because of the god of destruction. And the god of destruction destroyed their car, it destroyed their clothes, it destroyed this hotel having a second room. Like, it might have been like a lightning strike that hit all the other rooms. Like, I don't remember exactly, but the god of destruction caused all of these other things to happen because it opened them up to what life could offer. And that is a very long-winded way of saying I'm lucky, and maybe it's because I get knocked down and I don't really understand that I was knocked down. I got divorced in 2011, and that was a very tough thing for me and anybody to go through. If anybody ever says they're getting a divorce, it didn't happen on that day. It's been building for years. You're in a marriage, you don't just have a bad day and say, I'm getting divorced. You have hundreds of bad days, and you realize maybe a divorce is how I have to get out of this. So if someone says they're having a divorce, give them a hug and buy them a beer, because they need an ear and they need support. But anyway, I got a divorce in 2011, and my ex-wife and my daughters moved down here to Virginia. And that's where I actually am right now. My daughter's graduating high school this weekend.
Cool.
So, and she was 5 when we got divorced. No, 3. The youngest was 3. The oldest was 5. So it's been 15 years. But when I was working for Vibram at the time, and I asked Vibram, can I work half-time in Virginia and half-time in Massachusetts? And Vibram said no. And as I do, I then asked again, and Vibram said no. And that was 2012, 2013 when I was asking that question, because I'd been coming down to Virginia every other week, and I was burning through my leave. And it was clear it wasn't going to work. And I think I actually missed family vacations because I had to come down to Virginia during the year. And it was, anyway. So what I said to myself is, this isn't going to work. I need another plan so I can come down and see my girls. I can't work for any other company because the same thing's going to happen. I need to work for me, and I get to decide where I'm working from. I have an idea. I'll start a disc golf pro tour. That I don't know, like, most people might not go to there, but that's where I went.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Makes
logical
sense to
step.
me.
So
Start a brewery like some dummies do too.
yeah, there you go. But a brewery, you're stuck at Maple Hill in my case.
True.
I needed to be able to go to Virginia. And the fun thing is, in 2016 and 17 and 18, for the most part, our events were every other week, because every other week I spend long weekends with my daughters, and they avoided holiday weekends, because if the girls had a Monday off school, I want to be here for that also. So it's kind of funny looking back at the early days of the Pro Tour, and nobody knows this, but the schedule was based on me seeing my daughters, because that's the reason the Pro Tour exists in its current form. If I hadn't done it, somebody else would have done it. It's just, I did it so I get credit, but whatever. It was because Vibram wouldn't let me see my daughters. Well, they let me see my daughters, but they wouldn't let me work in both places. And so I got knocked down and I just found another path. And you're 100% right, Nate. That has happened to me. I've given talks, and what those talks invariably become is life knocked me down and I went over here. And thank goodness life knocked me down, because the God of destruction opens us up to new things.
Man, I mean, yeah, it sucks at the time, but
Absolutely.
that's what molds us, right? And that's
Yes.
what eventually you come out the other end as something different. Terry, you were going to say something.
Well, of course, you lean into, a number of different cliches and sayings and quotes and things that are out there about, one door closing, another one opening, those types of things. But I think it always takes the mindset of wanting to persevere. And I think, clearly there's some people have a more of a victim mentality of, oh, this sucks for me. I'm so disenfranchised, or I have all these other problems. There's no way to overcome it. And I think that's, not obviously what you've taken in terms of your outlook to it. I think it was always attributed, because I remember a friend of mine always saying that I'm so lucky about what I'm doing and, finding my passion in doing disc golf. And I think it's Abraham Lincoln, maybe it was somebody else, but it was something along the lines of, I find the quote was something about, I find that the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yes.
And that to me really resonated, because I always thought, no, asshole, like I work really hard and then these opportunities open up. Yeah. And I get to go do this because I did these other things, and that goes hand in hand with, all the practice that goes in for any athlete. They make the game winning shot, sure, but it was the 20 years before. Right. That got him into that moment. And Gary Vaynerchuk, a very brilliant, marketing strategist, talks about that kind of stuff all the time too. So I think we're all kind of a testament to that, when people always say you're so lucky. And it's like, yeah, of course, there's an element of luck for everyone. You could have also got hit by that train the day, then instead you turned around because you forgot your AirPods and you had to turn around and get them, whatever. But they're, taking advantage of those opportunities and being willing to pivot. And I think that is something that, as Nate was just alluding to, it feels like your brain never stops in terms of looking for that next thing, whether that is starting a business, whether it's for CDs or DVDs or stamping and doing that, or the games, board games. But then even within disc golf, I just had a memory pop up the other day about being at Maple Hill for a college championship event, an invitational.
Yeah.
And the passion that you have for the college scene, seeing how it's grown and really blossomed in the last decade. And we always say it's got to get into schools, it's got to get to the kids, it's got to be this opportunity. And it's not in a negative way, I call you out, but it feels like you're super passionate about that, and then you've segued or not. What is it about finding, pursuing the things that you feel really passionate about, but then being willing maybe even to cut that tie and or pivot? I don't know, maybe walk us through some of that mentality.
If I don't know the goal, if the goal of this podcast is for people to think I'm great, we should cut it right about here.
Let's get Steve's shortcomings list out.
Yeah.
No, not at all. But I mean,
Elon Musk.
Hold on, before you go, I want to say the purpose of this podcast is to learn.
Before I talk.
Before you talk. The purpose of this podcast is for people to learn. It's to podcasts in general. Look, when I opened Bevel, I had never listened to a podcast. I had barely ever listened to a book on tape. But the last, or Audible, whatever you want to say, the last 7 or 8 years, I've had an earbud in my head for 6 hours a day while I'm working in a brewery. And I always have one ear in and the other one out so I can hear everything breaking and making noises. But it's about learning. It's about learning from people's experiences, good, bad, or indifferent, and that's what I want to hear. So I actually like hearing about the low times and how you came out the other side. So go ahead, Steve.
Give us more dumb shit you did, Steve. Bring it on.
Regarding low times, we'll hit 2019 in a minute. But like Elon Musk, somebody asked Elon Musk, how do you get so many things done? And he said, by trying 10 times more than you see. And that resonated with me because people say, wow, Steve, you did all this, this, and this, and this, and the other thing. And I'm like, yeah. And there's like, you should see all the things I didn't do that I thought I could do. Mm-hmm. Ryan Dage is the general manager. He's the manager of the pro shop at Maple Hill. And when he first started working at Maple Hill, he was genuinely nervous around me. Holy crap, you founded Maple Hill, the MVP Open, the Disc Golf Pro Tour,
Vibram Director of the Year. You're on the board.
You are a god among men. Like that's his vision of me. And I'm obviously just a man. But he was nervous around me because he saw me as someone who can do no wrong. Everything I touch turns to gold. In fact, the Maple Hill Invitational is the college event. I thought, hey, let's make a college event 2 weeks after the college championship. We'll bring the top players up here, and we'll bring the regional schools here, and we'll have them compete. And I still think it's a good idea, but the college schedules and finals, and there's so many things that got in the way. Like, we had to work so hard just to make that event happen. It was clearly not worth the effort to me. I am passionate about schools and disc golf and kids, but that wasn't the way to make it go. So I jettisoned that. We did it for 2 years. A lot of kids had fantastic experiences. I still have kids say, thank you very much for that. And why don't you do it again? But then Motts calls me and Steve Bro and Danny, they say, hey, we're going to do this future of disc golf thing. We want you to be involved. And I was like, this sounds great. I think getting kids in disc golf is really important. And so we worked really hard and we got word out and we worked through all of these frictions and we got 8, maybe 10 kids to the quote finals at Maple Hill. Okay, wait a minute. That's not right. And so I stepped back and I said, okay, how should we get disc golf? How should we get kids into disc golf? And the answer is different. And Motts is from Europe. The answer is different in Europe than it is in the US. In the US, 90% of the sports you play are through your school. You asking kids to go outside their school and then play a sport. Like, wait a minute, I have baseball and I have soccer and I have basketball and track and field hockey and all the other sports. What am I doing? Like, we are missing a very big boat by not attacking the schools to get disc golf into schools. And so now I'm working with the PDGA and their club program, and I'm trying to guide them to get one state. And I proposed Michigan, but I think Illinois might be a better bet for some reasons, to get one state to approve disc golf as a varsity sport. And once that happens, we can point to Michigan and say, Michigan, Illinois has this as a varsity sport. And we have 43 clubs doing it. You should make it a varsity sport. And then we just get that ball rolling. And unfortunately, I've done a lot of investigating. There's like 15 to 20 states that we could get fairly easy. I believe in a decade, we could have 15 to 20 states. And then once that happens, you've got the roots. And then for, in 5 to 10 years after that, all of the world champions are going to be coming from these states, and people will think that's really weird. But in fact, a guy in Illinois started this, and that's why all the world champions are coming from Illinois now. So, so you just run into a wall and you say, that's not right. And you run into a wall and you say, that's not right. And you say, hey, this is how I'm not going to run into this wall anymore, but this is what I think you guys should do. And where I go with Ryan Dage on that is he has seen so many of my ideas come and go, and a few of them hit. And those are the ones that stick, and you keep nurturing those, and they grow and grow and grow. But there are so many ideas. I don't think he thinks I'm a god anymore. I think he thinks I'm a guy that just throws a lot of stuff against the wall. And every once in a while, something hits and you keep going with it.
Yeah, but that humility, especially as somebody who is a leader, such as yourself at Maple Hill and in several other places, that humility, I think, is so critical as well. I mean, he needs to see you as a human being, but also somebody that he can trust to go to and talk to and bring an idea to, and that he's seen you fail before, but he's also seen you overcome that.
Nate, I want to say it's been really fun. I didn't even think about this, but it's been really fun because he does bring ideas more than he used to. And I think he's saying, hey, we can try things and fail. And if they fail, nobody knows about it. And if they succeed, we look like geniuses. So I thank you for saying that, because I don't think I'd ever put those pieces together.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, I am now a boss. I don't consider myself a boss. I always call my my employees, I call them coworkers. I work alongside these people. And I always say, like, hey, look, I'm not a genius. I'm just the idiot who took this leap to do this. And it's only going to be successful because of all of us. And so, when we have meetings, I always start by saying, hey, what are you guys seeing? I'm not here 24 hours a day. I don't hear what everybody's saying at the bar or at the food trucks or whatever. So, and giving them that feeling of, hey, I can pipe up. And then if I say no, I generally try to back that up with knowledge or information. And I'll say, hey, come down to my office. I'll open the books to you. Here, look at them. Here's why we're not going to do that idea. It just doesn't make financial sense or whatever. Yeah. And they appreciate that because now they feel a part of something. And that's kind of what that seems like. You've created that scenario at Maple Hill.
Yep. And you reminded me, when I spent time with my daughters as much as I possibly could, I would tell them, when I ask them to do something, they can either say okay or they can say why. They're not allowed to say no. I like that. If you disagree, say why. You don't just say no, because we both have different amounts of information, and let's talk through it. And every once in a while, they would convince me that I'm not right, and that's a really, I think, empowering thing for someone to do.
I agree.
With all that being said, and I know we still have some big topics, but
real big, Terry. Come on now.
Could I ask, what do you feel like, and this might take a minute to funnel down, what's been the dumbest thing you've tried to pull off that was just like, oh my God, what was I thinking at all? That was the dumbest thing I've ever put into motion. Do you have a candidate?
I do have a candidate, and it popped in my head very quickly.
Okay.
And I wish Zoe and Dustin and Paul and Shasta were here.
I know this one. Yep. Okay, go on.
What do you think it is?
Well, I think you're going to say, as much as you love the carnival fan engagement, involvement atmosphere that was the vision of the Pro Tour, the reality of getting thousands of pounds of wood together to create handmade carnival games, to pack them up, put them in some form of trailer, and then drive them around the country, all while expecting a couple of wildly underpaid athletes to set up, administer, and run said games while trying to pull off the beginnings of the Pro Tour. I think that's where you're going to say is maybe one of your largest misses to date.
We could do
maybe I don't know.
How did I do? Copy paste that and put it in my voice. AI can make it in my voice, and we're done.
Okay.
So to put a finer point on that, not only am I going to spend $5,000 that we don't have on these beautiful facades for these games, and then we're going to pay these. We're going to not pay these touring pros to go around the country. We'll give them an ant-infested camper van to sleep in. But the first time that they left Maple Hill, We're packing everything in the trailer, and the last thing we pack in there is all the facades of all the plywood facades. 40 minutes later, they're driving down the highway, and Dustin calls. I can hear Zoe crying in the background, and hi, Dustin, what's going on? Well, the trailer won't stop bouncing. Anytime we get over like 40, it just bounces. That's weird. So this is 2016. I have no idea how we found this information out, and everybody listening already knows this, but apparently when you pack a trailer, you want to put all of the weight over the axle. Who knew?
Not you guys.
Just put it in there, whatever. Harmonics isn't a thing. Mm-hmm. So we found that out, and they are sitting by the side of the highway, unpack the trailer, take all the heavy stuff, put it over the axle, and repack the trailer and go on along. And that was just one of the little things that went very badly in that first year. And I remember I think the second event was the Silver Cup. And I said, what we need here is we need pool ball, which is, if you've been to Maple Hill during tournament time, you know what pool ball is. It's a lot more. You know what we need? We need more plywood.
Wood. Yep.
And I remember Steve Brinster and one of his kids,
Leighton,
yeah, the son.
Yeah. Playing pool ball with me for hours at Silver Cup. And it was really, really fun, but nobody else did it by my memory. So anyway, that was, you got to try, I guess. But I still believe that if I brought that festival back now, I think it would be a success. And maybe, having said that out loud, maybe I will do that because those were really fun games, and playing games with discs is super fun.
Yeah, and to your point, for anyone that wasn't around in those that first year, so much of the Pro Tour's existence and the appeal was, and to this day, I feel like you still have it very much at Maple Hills. What can people be doing that's not just watching the shot by shot disc golf?
Yes.
How can we get an entire family engaged? How can, whether they're 5 or 10 years old or 25 years old, what can be happening on site? And like you said, throwing discs or Frisbee like objects, having all these games. Now, when I, recently have attended and we see any of the most recent iterations of the Pro Tour, it is truly that festival event-like atmosphere where there's 10 or 20 or 30 different regular vendors.
Yeah.
Then there's players that sometimes are set up. Then there's merchandise and sales. There's multiple food trucks. There's beverage trucks. There's ice cream trucks. There's all these things going on. So it took us a little bit, but we've now have that infrastructure there, and that's built out at all of our biggest events. And so to have, maybe there's a contracting gig for you there, Steve, you showing up with your carnival games that's exclusively focused on those. I mean, that sounds like a business model just ready to happen. Now, would you go all plywood, or are we 3D printing things? Are you using more banners and
the only
better
thing different
signage?
I would use thicker plywood.
Thicker, good, good.
Yeah. Well, and a heavier trailer, a bigger trailer.
So, I remember being at the bonfire after the GMC.
Yes,
which I don't even know if the bonfire was supposed to be a thing, but it became a thing. And I remember walking back there and sitting next to Dustin and Paul and Shasta and Zoe, and learning what the word cathartic means. Because I think it was Paul who said to me, he said, Steve, throwing the facades of Dodge City onto the fire was cathartic. And that night I go and look up the word cathartic, and I understand what they went through for us. It's if you don't know Zoe Andike, Dustin Keegan, Paul Oman, and Shasta Chris, those people are responsible for the Pro Tour existing. Obviously, Terry Miller and Johnny V are as well. Obviously, Miles is. Obviously, Sean Jack is. Obviously, Nate Doss is, who did the first broadcast with a sheet behind him because Steve didn't understand shipping or something. Maybe there was a snow delay. I'm going to say there was a snow delay.
Right.
But any which way, those four put in like physical hour upon hour at every single event to set that up, break it down, and then finally, thank God, burn it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That. I mean, again, the idea is as legitimate as ever right now. Clearly going at it a slightly different way, it would be needed. But I do feel like just recently being at an Elite Plus event, for instance, and seeing what's offered, and so many of our venues now could absolutely host those or something of that nature. I think there's an idea there. I like it.
These events have always needed to be more than just a disc golf tournament.
Right.
And we have doing that. Have done and are doing.
And that was the start, right? I mean, I recently took a long plane flight over an ocean, and that was a great experience. It took 6 hours. Think about the Wright brothers, though. Right? I mean, these guys put their life on the line to potentially fly an airplane. And so everything has to start in a place. And yeah, it sucks. And I remember just, we're friends with Zoe. We're friends with all those people. All of us are. And they had times where they just absolutely hated it. But also that's a part of their life. That's something that they've done. Then they can learn from that, and that helps with future decisions. And they were a part of help building the foundation. So, I get that was one of your biggest misses. I tend to agree. I think if you're gonna go that route, a bigger trailer is probably the best first thing to invest in, or less ants in the RV.
Less ants. So the interesting thing, and this is a perfect segue into 2019 with your mention of the Wright brothers, and I'll get there. But as with everything Pro Tour early days, we had no money. I had spent it all on the facades, and the camper and the trailer were both owned by my sister and her husband Bob and Lisa, and they let me. I don't quite remember I think I said, if it works, I'll buy it, or I don't remember exactly how but so we basically got to use that for free the first year. And I might have forgotten to get insurance on either the trailer or the RV. I'm not sure. But I figured it was theirs, and whatever, and it's all fine. But we literally had no money. And so someone has an RV and a trailer, that's the RV and trailer that we're going to use. There was zero thought to, wow, we need a bigger trailer. It was, wow, how much can we stuff into this trailer?
Of course.
And I think we blew out 3 or 4 tires because those trailers have a max weight, and if you double it, the tires break. Like, who knows?
Right.
I don't think we ever actually weighed it, but it was well above the max weight. But to your point about your point about the Wright brothers, Simon Sinek, I don't know if you remember the guy named Simon Sinek, but he tells this story, and it resonates with me. And he says that when in the early days when they were trying to learn to fly, there was one group that the government funded, and I think it was the military, funded this group. And it's led by some really famous and smart guy, physics, aerospace. I don't even know if aerospace existed at the time. And then he had a team of dozens of really intelligent people working with him so they could develop a flying machine. Meanwhile, the Wright brothers work their bike shop during the day, and then at night they would go to the dunes and try to figure out how to build a flying machine. We all know who won that race. And Simon, I'm getting goosebumps again. Simon Sinek points out the reason the Wright brothers won was because they were doing it because all they wanted to do was fly. They did not want accolades. They did not want fame and fortune. They just wanted to fly. And I look at Ultimate. I look at the AUDL and I look at MLU. I was a fan of the MLU. They were polished. They had beautiful logos, beautiful uniforms, very good production value. And the AUDL, the American Ultimate Disc League, I don't think they could have come up with a worse name. Like a professional sports league with 4 letters, when you obviously could do it in 3. Like, this is dumb. And no way am I going to support the AUDL. But in retrospect, the MLU was just about polish and looking good and money. And the AUDL, I'm guessing, was just about being scrappy and making it work no matter what. And then I look at the Disc Golf Pro Tour and I look at the Disc Golf World Tour. And UC is an amazing man. He is the reason that there are Finns kicking our asses in disc golf right now. He has done so much for the sport. But when I look at the Disc Golf World Tour in 2015, 16, they had so much more money, so much more support, and they were just about the top. They wanted to get one good card to cover on to have on live coverage or post-produced. They didn't want women because women nobody's going to come watch the women. And it was all about the look and how good it looked. And I don't know what the goal was. I presume Innova put some money in. I presume the goal was to make money. And then you had the Pro Tour, which looked, compared to the World Tour, looked crappy. We had no money. We had live coverage on Smashbox because Terry and Johnny were willing to, I mailed him rice and beans and he said, sure, we'll do it. And so, but we were all about scrappy, and the 100%, the reason that I started the Pro Tour was because I wanted the Pro Tour to exist. It had nothing to do with me getting rich or famous. It had nothing to do with, well, that's it. It was, I just wanted to, when I'm 80, to sit on a beach somewhere and watch disc golf. And I'm getting closer and closer to that age. So it might happen. But 2019 proved to me that was the goal. That was a really hard year. People listening might not know. In 2019, at the beginning of the year, the Pro Tour did not control the media. The media arguably control. Neither of us controlled either. We were both we were 100% independent. In 2018, I think Jonathan Gomez and I agreed, you can cover the Pro Tour for free, but you have to cover all the cards. And in 2019, they didn't agree to pay for the rights. And so I said, well, screw this. If I'm not getting any money for the media, I'll just do it myself and we'll get all the ads. And there we go. Apparently doing media is harder than I thought. Terry, I don't know if Terry is smiling or not.
I'm just listening. Yeah, this is great.
My hand is blocking over Terry right now.
Go on.
But I still believe in my heart of hearts that the decision was correctly made and poorly implemented. If a professional sports league does not get income from the media covering that sports league, the sports league will not succeed. So you could say I was between a rock and a hard place, but in fact, I was just against a rock. There was a path forward. We just did a bad job of implementing it. And that's 100% on me. And that's why people hated me, and that's all fine. But we had to make that decision. In retrospect, we should have done a better job of following through and implementing the media. But we didn't have a choice. If you don't control the media, the finances from the media, you're not going to succeed. And the fun thing is 5 or 6 events in, after the Pro Tour had been severely bloodied and Jomez had missed out on covering these 5 or 6 Pro Tour events, both of us were fine coming to the table and having a conversation. And Jomez did agree to pay for the rights for the rest of that season. And that's why we made it through. Well, that's part of the reason why we made it through all the way to the MVP Open, where I realized I'm not going to be able to make this work, and sold it to Jeff and Todd and Jeff. But there were many times in the conversation with Todd and Jeff where I tried to get more. One of the cases I tried to get more for Terry and Johnny and Miles and Sean, Jack. And then there were other times where I tried to get more for me, and those all ended up failing. And I had to come to the complete realization that the only thing that mattered was that the Pro Tour existed. It did not matter if I came out of it a net loss, a net positive, a break even. It didn't matter if I had a say or if I didn't have a say. I had to get to the point that inside of me, I had to fully accept, if the Pro Tour exists, I'm happy. If the Pro Tour exists, I can walk away and be satisfied. And it took some doing. Ironically, Danielle Charlier is the reason I got there. She's the reason I was in that position in the first place, and she's the reason I could get through it emotionally. It was because my only goal was for the Pro Tour to exist that I was able to get through that and accept the outcome as it happened. And it took a little while to get there.
I think, like you said earlier in the conversation, when you have somebody that you know says, "Hey, I'm getting a divorce," it's not that day, right? It's not. It didn't start that day. This started months, if not years, before that, to lead all the way up to this situation. Look, Steve, I gotta say, in 2019, this is where all three of us sort of collide together. I was leaving disc golf and starting my brewery. You called, "Hey, I need commentators?" And we were like, "Yeah, let's do it." In my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to have Terry there to help me, because I'd only ever commentated live once with Terry when I pulled out of the Memorial the year before. And then we get to the Memorial, and we're doing the commentary with Johnny V, and we're finishing a round. It was at Fountain Hills, and I saw Terry Miller walking away off of 18, like towards the parking lot, on coverage. We got off the show and I called him, "Terry, what the hell are you doing?" And he's like, "Dude, I'm not a part of this. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, Steve fired me, basically." And, in a kind of a public way, because this is a public sphere. And I said, "Man, we got to figure this out. We got to figure this out." And it wasn't until Portland that Terry and I commentated for the first time together. All this being said, I love how open and honest you are about it, Steve, because I think that's so important for us to learn and understand sort of what happened. Like, people make mistakes, and you owned up to them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you were the one who had to get down to that lowest basement level of, "I just want this thing to continue to succeed." And you did, or to continue to be real.
Exist.
And
Just
exist.
To exist.
And it still does to this day. So thank you for accepting that at that time.
It's important to me that I hear Terry's take on what happened, because, as I've said earlier, my memory is not very good. And I think I want to hear how this affected you as a human, and how it actually went down.
I'll maybe show my either the way I've compartmentalized it and or aged, that some of the details now even remain a touch fuzzy. I remember more so the details, I should say, than the timeline. That's the part that actually has become a little bit fuzzy to me. Thinking back, I remember us having conversations, whether it was a late payment or you squaring up with us, with Johnny and myself, and most people, again, unless you're old school, didn't necessarily know that Smashbox TV was emerged around 2014. And by 2015, 2016, by 2016, we had done the World Championships. We were covering the Worlds live on our YouTube channel on Smashbox TV. And there was all of like 5 of us that covered the entire World Championships. Literally 2 camera operators, myself, another commentator, and Johnny V, and maybe 1 or 2 other people kind of assisting, which is crazy to think that now a broadcast on any given day is 20, 30, 40 people deep. But it was the early beginning. So I recall at one point, just among the million things we struggled through to try and pull off, and the different iterations of filming the women in the morning, or filming some of their shots and then editing them together and then splicing them into the men's coverage, because we weren't covering the women live, and we were just giving you, the women's golf 1 to 3 holes at a time as kind of a break from the action as we walked down the fairway. We didn't have replays. We didn't have all of those fancy things that we have now and are accustomed to. And we definitely didn't have a regular booth. We didn't have regular commentators. For the first year or two, it was me walking around on the course, like literally with a microphone 5 feet away from the players, commentating on their every move, which was a whole nother, scenario with its challenges. When we weren't getting a check or a check on time or something of that nature, I remember at one point you calling and saying, hey, like, I think you said specifically, San Francisco is going to be our last show, is what I think I recall you saying, is when we get to the San Francisco Open, as soon as that event is done, that's our last show. We're done. The Pro Tour's done. And I just remember saying to Johnny, that can't happen. Like, we can't let this happen. We have to figure out another way. That sucks, but we can't let money be the thing that drags us down. This momentum that we do have, we can't let that be the thing that drags us down. And then getting through it, doing all the things that we did, whatever that was. And then at a certain point, this was after... Yeah, I guess this was after you had already said that Smashbox as a company wasn't directly involved, because the Memorial that first year was the first event, and you and some of the gentlemen from not Parked,
Par Saved,
thank you. Some of those gentlemen, along with 1 or 2 people that we had brought in, you said, hey, we're going to bring the media in-house. We're going to be able to do it. We don't need you, Johnny. We don't need you, Terry. We're going to do everything on our own. We've assembled our team in the last year or 2. We've assembled a team. We think we can pull it off. I was out there working and filming and doing other stuff at the Memorial that year, but hearing that things weren't going well. At some point I got the phone call, whether it was probably from Johnny V, saying, this is a shit show. Like, none of this is working. They're supposed to be editing stuff offsite, and we're going to have post-production tomorrow plus live. None of that at all materialized the way that you had at least storyboarded it out or envisioned it. And I know that maybe the very next event, I feel like, was maybe Jonesboro. Waco? Was it Waco?
Waco was the second, and Johnny couldn't work.
And because Johnny, I think, was on a cruise. Oh yeah, was that Waco though?
Yes,
that was Waco.
It was 100% Waco.
Johnny was going on a Disney cruise with his family and absolutely couldn't work. And I still wasn't even, I think, considered or part of the possible game plan change. And I think I had to. So Waco was a disaster. You had a different producer who we knew, who was friends within disc golf, and you guys were going. Was that when you were going to feed in the commercials? No,
that was Jonesboro.
That was Jonesboro. Okay, so Waco happened. It was some complete disaster, and wasn't that also then the year Macbeth shot 18 under, and the only reason it was covered is because Jomez was allowed to be there, but on the chase card. And
Oh, wow.
Macbeth was on the chase card. So it wouldn't have been otherwise covered, if I recall, because you were in control of lead card, but then Macbeth shoots the 18 under on a chase card. And because Jomez had ties to Waco and to Ryan Draper, that they were still there, and then they actually captured it. Otherwise, it wouldn't even been captured because we didn't have the capabilities of capturing an entire chase card. So then I think ahead to Jonesboro, which was the next event. And I remember I was contracted to be covering because I went out and tried to get a bunch of other work that year. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not doing Pro Tour stuff. And I was contracted. That conflicted with the same weekend as the amateur doubles that John and Dee Houck were putting on, like the national amateur doubles in Texas. So I went to that event and I was doing shot by shot coverage for that. And I remember coming back to the hotel because we had some rain delays and challenges. I came back to the hotel and turned on the coverage, and it was a complete effing disaster because you guys were trying to like feed in commercials through some third-party system, and it was supposed to cut away, and there's supposed to be these audible beeps that fed in these commercials, and it was so clear that it was just a complete disaster and a mess. And of course, there was a touch of me that was chuckling. But at the same time, Nate and Val are involved, and Johnny was back on board to try and bail out and to help where he could. And I was just like, this is an effing joke. Like, this is such a disaster. And I remember that weekend, and then I was working and doing my thing. And then it was shortly after that, we had a conversation about getting back involved and so on and so forth. But yeah, that was so much of what I remember. And then also just the overarching premise was, all right, let's see if we can figure things out. And you essentially had no money. And I think maybe I talked to Miles, or maybe it was you, Steve. You guys were anticipating, you were anticipating getting something like $8,000 per day in these ad revenues. And, this was going to be underwrite the entire process of live coverage and completely revolutionize the Pro Tour, because you guys were going to get $8,000 or $10,000 a day in ad revenues that were going to be systematically fed in. And then at the end of the weekend, I think it was Miles, I said, oh, how did the ad revenue go? And he goes, I think they got like 13. And I was like, wow, okay, that was a good start. And then he clarified, he's like, no, they got $13, instead of like 13,000 a day or whatever was my assumption. And so instead of 20 grand, you got $13.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit, like that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that didn't work.
That didn't work. Can I pause you there?
Right. Sure.
Because this is good historical information. My memory of Memorial, Waco, and Jonesboro is comparable in that they were all disasters. But I do want to push back a little bit. Memorial was the first time that we covered multiple cards live.
Okay.
So because we had bought the Live U units.
Sure.
And I think we got 4 of them. And so we were able to cover the lead card and the chase card and actually cut between them. Now, we weren't able to, I don't think we were able to store shots. So we could only cut between them if they were throwing at different times.
Right.
So
I think so.
Like, hey, Paul, can you hold on a second? No.
Right.
So, but that was important. So that was by my memory, that was an important positive step. And I'm able to hold on to the tiniest little positivity because I can see, okay, we can do that again. We can build on that. So while the ship is literally 500 feet underwater and on fire, I'm able to hold on to, if we can turn it, there's something. Waco was, Johnny was not there, and he He told us a year ahead of
Yeah,
time.
he
wasn't
was
gonna
on
be there.
vacation. He wasn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
I think he was
out.
on a cruise,
He was
literally
on a Disney cruise with his kids.
Yeah,
Right.
and he literally told us like a year earlier,
Yep.
I'm going to be on a cruise this weekend, and if you need me that weekend, I'm not going to be available. So we ended up getting this other director, and that was the weekend that Jack, I don't know his last name. He's the guy, the camera operator
Dallywater.
from England. What?
Dallywater. Jack
Yeah, he's
Dallywater.
like the most British name in the world.
Right.
And he is, in fact, British, so it worked. But he had this camera that could focus on the player and made the background blurry. And that was the first time we'd done that kind of a shot. Before someone throws, you kind of make them into a hero, and then you cut to them throwing. And that was the first time that had happened. And the reason it happened is because the director didn't understand that's not what we want to see. And it ended up being, at the time it was bad, but it gave us this shot that we didn't have before. So again, I'm just pulling little tiny silver linings. And then Waco, and then Jonesboro, we mandated that to watch this, you had to watch it on Roku or Fire TV or Apple TV. And that was because YouTube, we couldn't feed the ads.
Okay.
And I remember Sean Jack calling me after the event and saying, Steve, I saw a Ford commercial on the coverage. You must have killed it. And no, they showed like Ford commercials all the time, and whatever. It absolutely did not work. But we had a third party serving the ads, and the idea is that they would get, Ford and Subway and Southwest Airlines would buy ad space from them, and they didn't really care who saw the ads as long as somebody saw the ads. So they're just going to pay 7 cents for every 1,000, and we would just serve ads and make, the calculations. By my memory, the calculations were 20,000 total, but your numbers are not too far off. And my memory is that we made $12, not 13, but again, not too far off.
Right.
And I'm being serious. I've told this story before, and I tell people, the guy, we made 12, and people say that's not too bad. No, 12, like no other digits after it.
Right.
And that was the moment on that phone call when I realized this is not going to work. We're not going to be able to shift this Roku only thing into a financial profit center in any kind of a time frame that's going to make sense. And that was the point where I started stealing money from the MVP Open. So I had, obviously, players are registering, sponsorship money's coming in, and I just stole $50,000 from the MVP Open to get us to San Francisco and beyond. And that's, if you would like to pick up there, you can. And if you want to interview Seth Fenley for like 12 or 13 days, you could have him tell you the story of getting from Jonesboro to San Francisco. I think the truck literally broke down 3 times.
Right.
He called once, and I literally answered, "Is the tour over?" Like we were as destitute as we could be. I maxed out my credit card, and I was like, if you need more money, like the last time the truck broke down, that's all I have. Like I've emptied my daughter's college savings account. I've emptied my 401k. I've made a promise to myself I won't lose my house. Like, and my cards are maxed. There's like, we can't do anything. And we got to San Francisco, and the only reason we made it there was because we loved Sean Jack. Like he's like you guys, he's one of my true friends, and I'm not going to end without going to his event. And Sean Jack literally saved the tour. So many people did, but it's not hyperbole, because he sold so many tickets and people bought so much Disc Golf Pro Tour merch, even in this ship that's on fire and underwater, and they're buying the merch. And I'm going to start crying, but at the end of the event, I went to probably Seth Fenley and I said, "How did we do?" And he said, "You won't believe how much merch we sold." And we were able to pay the camera operators with that money. I just turned around and said, "Here you go. Let's go to Portland." And that's where the wheels started coming back on, because Jomez said, "Okay, we'll give you," I think it was 1,500 an event to do the live coverage. And then I'm using my MVP Open money to keep things afloat. And I think in Portland, we did a very similar thing with the sales and the cash just going straight to the camera operators. Like, accounting is out the window at this point. We're just, here's your food. So here's your money so you can go eat, and we're going to keep going.
And I believe Portland was the first place you may have made me peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch, because that was literally our budget. And I know you definitely did as well when we were at the D-Glow later on, and we might have gotten a ham one of those times, but that was literally our lunch. That we're hustling between rounds and we're doing all this stuff, and you're kind of anxiously waiting there at lunch, like, okay, well, here, I've got this for you, and it's whatever you scrounged up at.
And it's sandwiches that I was making during the round in all likelihood.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, it's not fresh. Like they were catered in peanut butter and jelly. They were definitely right on. And I would be willing to bet, if there was ever, I'm sure there's photos or videos somewhere, you weren't even using the right utensil. Like, you probably didn't have a knife, so you were using a spoon to ultimately scoop those things up. And yeah, I mean, even some of those details, whether I wanted to put them out of my memory or not, but some of those details of the next few months of then trying to get back on track, and then just us at Smashbox saying, Johnny V and I said, all right, you don't have any money. That was more than apparent, and you said it, so it's not like you were skirting it. That's when we brokered a deal essentially for us to take your live view units and some of your camera equipment, because that's what you bought in the off season to replace us with. Mm-hmm. And then later we said, all right, well, within a barter of sorts, we'll continue to work. And rather than you paying us real money, we'll take over the equipment that you purchased, because that was the only thing you had of value.
Well, no, because we sold all of our cameras to Gatekeeper.
Right. Yes.
In the same way.
But the live views, the streaming equipment, Smashbox, right, wrong, or indifferent, we rolled the dice on saying, well, now's as good a time as any if we're going to if we're going to do this. Let's get better equipment, and we're essentially going to work for it to then buy this equipment rather than us just going and buying it. Now, it would have been just as easy and maybe prudent and smart for us to say, we don't want your equipment and we're just out, and like, we'll wash our hands of this. And that thought briefly crossed our mind. I mean, we don't need to work. The idea of working to buy equipment to invest in something that had no guarantee to us was pretty stupid on our part. Like, thank you. There was just, I mean, Johnny's working a full-time job, which is great, but the level of business sense was low on our part as well, on the IQ side of things, to actually push forward, when it would have been a lot smarter just to be like, we're good, we'll wash our hands. And for whatever reason, well, the reason is you. I mean, the reason we didn't want it to fail is because we knew, and we were invested in you. Yes, the Pro Tour as a concept, but then you specifically. And the fact that you somehow reeled us in and wanted everyone to rally around you to be able to make this go forward is really what that's entirely what kept us going.
One of the things that impressed me the most, like, we pick our friends, and we're intentional about that. And you two are some of my favorite people on the earth, and that's purposeful. And to be able to literally fire someone on their own show and be very comfortable that at the end of it, we're going to be friends. Like that. I'm sure you're in the hotel room during Jonesboro, seeing all the wheels fall off. You can't help but be a little, yeah, you should have me there, dude. I get that. But I don't believe you had and I hope you stay there. Like you didn't, that wasn't there. We're all going to have that. Yeah, I could have helped you. That's a natural feeling. But I'm very confident the next feeling was not there. And like the fact that we're here today and we're able to comfortably talk about these things. I've tried to instill in my daughters, if something's going wrong, call it as soon as you see it. Because don't obviously try to fix it, but call it as soon as you see it. Because if you wait an hour or a day or a week, it's going to get worse, and people are going to say, wait, didn't you realize this a week ago? And, oh, yeah, I did. Sorry. Just call it as soon as you see it and try to be honest. And I'm not always good at that. I knew that the truck was dying, and I put Seth behind the wheel. I cannot apologize to Seth enough for the position I put him in, knowingly. And we didn't have any money. It didn't even matter. But there were things I could not face, and that just proves to me a little bit how weak I am in some ways. But that's my limit, I guess. I found that. I've also told my youngest, she loves to roller skate. And I tell her, we went roller skating one day, and I said, how did you do today? And she said, not so good. I didn't fall.
Wow. Quite a perspective.
Right. And that kind of thing almost makes me cry when I hear, I'm like, I don't know exactly where you got that, but if I could instill something in you, that's what I want to instill. If you don't fall while you're roller skating when you're 10, you didn't try hard enough. and she either knew I wanted to hear that or it's true. I mean, one of those two.
Yeah, it's been interesting even hearing you, Steve, and then T-Dog, you explain that time, that 20. I was unaware of the firing, and we were just doing the commentary. We were sort of segregated from a lot of this because we were also just opening Bevel at the time. And we were just okay, we did the memorial. It blew up on the internet that we had a sheet behind us. People knew exactly what sheet it was. We took the sheet down between the FPO and the MPO and whatever. It was just our wall. This whole year, the booth was in our guest bedroom in our tiny little 700 square foot house at the time. And it's surreal. It's surreal sitting here now talking about it, as the past, because I think the biggest thing I'm taking away from even what Terry said is we did it for you, Steve. Now, Steve, I don't want you to feel like you're special, okay? Because like your mom said, we want to build an independent person here. I want you to feel too special. What I think it is, we were so bought into your vision. The vision, getting away from the PDGA, not to say that they're not doing good things and that they hadn't up to that point, but getting out of that sphere and understanding that the tour could be a business and that we as athletes could then be a part of that business, right? To see it grow in such a way, to get it be away from the grassroots growth business, nonprofit business of the PDGA to something that would succeed. Now in 2019, unbeknownst to me and maybe the rest of the disc golfing world, my career was over. I mean, I think I knew deep down I was starting a business. I was the head brewer and all those things. But we believed in your vision of what you had believed in. And ultimately you, for lack of a better word right now, lost it. But we were still believing in it. and believing in it for you. That's why when a pizza showed up to my door in between shows, I was like, okay, this is cool. At least I'm not getting nothing. Eventually, I had to call you and say, Steve, I cannot eat another piece of pizza. Just don't send anything at all. I'll just do this for free. I will do this for free, and I don't care. And we did work that entire season for nothing. And I remember all of us being together in Portland. This is the last thing I'll say about it. I remember us all being together in Portland. That was the first time that we got Terry to come do commentary as the host. We did, and by the way, I believe for Waco, we had Jeff Spring as the host. It was either Waco or Jonesboro. It was one of those two.
One of the two, yeah, sounds right.
And I remember I flew Jeff home on my flyer miles because we couldn't get one of Todd's flight credits. But anyways, we were all together in Portland.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, because my brother works for the airlines.
Works for the airlines. That's how we got Jeff. That's how we got Jeff to Bend. Didn't have a way to get him home. Yeah. Steve, you didn't have any money. I used my miles to get him home. But we were all together in Portland. Terry came. Steve, you were there. Your brother was there. We did the commentary from your brother's hotel room, which was just up the street. And Bevel did its first in-person event there at selling beer. Jeff Spring was the tournament director. And I just remember thinking, like, we're doing this, man. This is what we're doing. This is and that event was a great success. The people of Portland came out, and I don't know. That was kind of where I felt like, yeah, I'll go through the rest of the season with you, Steve. I don't care. Let's just do it. And so that's my perspective. I was like, I think I was a little bit, I wasn't a part of the businessy stuff, all the deals you guys were working. But at the end of the day, I just feel honored to have been a part of it. And it's funny because my playing career seems so far in the past now, it's hard for me to even barely remember it. So thank you for that.
You brought up so many positive memories, and I appreciate you saying you did it for me, but I think you said it better when you said it. You did it for the vision. We all want a pro tour to exist. The national tour was a good stepping stone, but they weren't willing to take the next step. And I did try to work with them on that, but they said no. And so the vision of the pro tour is what we were working towards. It is funny that you mentioned my brother's flights, so what that means is you're flying standby for people who don't know. And so you go there and you get there as early as you can so you can be first on the standby list. And then if somebody doesn't show, you can take that seat. And I remember going to Idlewild I'm going to guess it was 2019, and dropping off the truck and trailer in the airport parking lot. And then I go into the airport, and she's like, "Oh, it's going to be so close." And like, she finally called me up, and I got on the flight, and I'm literally checking in, and some doofus comes running up. He's like, "Did I make it?" And she looked at me and she said, "I'm so sorry." And that guy got on the plane because he had a ticket, but he was 30 seconds away. And I said, "It's okay." And I went out to the truck and I made myself a PB&J, and I slept in the bed of the truck in the parking lot of the airport. And the next morning I found a flight and I got home. And it's just that's just how it is. We could beat this horse to death. It was very, very difficult. I do want to clarify. I had $50,000 or $60,000 come in for the MVP Open, and I used that money to get the Pro Tour to the MVP Open. From San Francisco to the MVP Open, Todd and I were talking about how to transition to him owning the Pro Tour.
Todd Rainwater, just for everyone out there.
Todd.
Earlier we were talking about Todd Dodge, your brother,
Yes.
who works for American Airlines, and now Todd Rainwater. Go ahead.
A little different.
They're on slightly different resources. But
I wouldn't have minded Todd Rainwater getting me a ticket.
Right.
It might have been above
nicer
standby.
flight.
Yeah. But Todd Rainwater he understood, just like you said, Nate, he understood what I was trying to do. He understood that the odds are stacked against me. And I honestly didn't understand the money that he had. And I maybe still don't, but I didn't understand the resources. And he said to me, if you ever get in real trouble, give me a call. And it was like I had my own little bat signal, and I worked so hard to not use it. And we got to San Francisco, and that was when I realized I'm not going to make it. And it's funny how many of these things had to come together all at the right time, because just getting to San Francisco is a thing. We wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for Sean Jack. And when we were there, I realized we could make it maybe, but once we got to the MVP Open, I'm $60,000 short, and I don't think I want to tell all the players, by the way, you're not going to get paid. And so that's literally the reason that I sold the Pro Tour, is because I was 60,000 in the hole, and I couldn't pay. I had all of the money that came in for the tournament was gone. The one asset I had was the Pro Tour, and I sold it to Todd Rainwater basically for $60,000. And I said, here you same as the sales at San Francisco Open. Here you go. Yeah. It was just like, thank you for this money, and I'll give it to the players. And now I'm out. And that's how it happened. There's some horrible times and good times getting to that point. But that's where it ended up. I do have a fun story about for that Terry's maybe heard me tell. Where I tried, we had an agreement with Todd, and I tried to give Terry and Johnny and Miles and maybe Sean Jack shares in the Pro Tour. And like, I don't know my exact percentage, but let's pretend it was 10%. And I said to Todd's lawyer, I said, hey, can I give 1% to Terry, 1% to Johnny, 1% to Miles, and 1% to Sean Jack? And my percentage would then go down to 6%. And to my mind, there's nothing there. That's just all the numbers are the same. We're just changing the names on a couple of the spaces. And I genuinely don't know why, but that threw him off so much. And he said, okay, deal's off. And I was actually in a Walmart at the time. My brother had dropped me off to go get gas. And I sat down in a beach chair display, and I was bereft. I've never felt that low in my life. Like I just tried to do something nice for somebody. It's not going to affect you at all. And it just kiboshed the entire thing. And I just sat there. I suspect I didn't even buy what I was supposed to buy. I just sat in that chair until enough time passed where I could move again. But then Joe Shargaloff of the PDGA called Todd and said, look, he didn't mean anything by it, and let's try one more time. And we did, and it worked. But that was a very scary moment. And I thought that I had missed. And that was where I had to just admit what I want does not matter. It's as you said, Nate, it's all just the vision that we want this thing to exist.
And to kind of put an end to that story, I recall that I was at one point, I was on a layover in Denver on my way out to Bend, Oregon, because that became the new process for many years, was for me to go out to Bend to do commentary for Pro Tour events, obviously going to Nate and Val's. And my layover was almost always Denver. I was in Denver and had just gotten a burrito from Qdoba. This is not a sponsored ad by them, although I wouldn't mind it. But I sat down and you had called me and you had said something along the lines of, hey, I wanted to get you a share or split up these shares the way that, I wanted to do that for you. Kind of like we talked about, 5-6 years ago or whatever. And you and Johnny would have a share of the company. And I just wanted to let you know, you can't have any shares. I don't have any to give you. I said, okay. That's pretty much where the conversation had come and gone. And I don't bring that up to totally, to not to sound like a dick, but I think of all these processes, all of these things we've gone through, and I knew obviously that there was an attempt on your part, and it stung a little bit because I always felt like we were so invested, not physically, not monetarily, but with everything but our money or taking a lack there of money or pay cuts or whatever. And then I always thought, like, clearly a 1% share wasn't at all the value that I couldn't care less about to this day. It was more of the fact of like, oh, I could hang my hat on, like, oh, I have 1% of the pro tour, that I feel like I was a significant part of either maintaining or the growth of. And I got over it probably by the end of that day. I'll still give you shit every day that I think about it. But it was definitely one of those other moments that kind of fell in line with like the struggles that we've had of, where we've been, the things we did, a firing to a rehiring to, working together still on any given day. But it's all been part of that long story that is the Disc Golf Pro Tour that continues to shape and mold all of our lives in one way or another. So
to put a point on it, just like the Wright brothers, we just kept trying until we did it.
Exactly. Steve, I know you have a lot of other things that you've done, and we're going to have you back one day to talk about those. Vibram being one of them. I think we could do some significant time on Vibram, as well as currently Boda Brothers and your gaming company that you have with your brother. We'd love to hear more about that. But you've been so gracious with your time, Steve. Plug anything you're working on. This kind of final word to you, man. Take it away.
So we just did the AM side, which is the MVP AM side, I should say, which is I want to make it into a mega AM event. And sometimes events get my juices flowing, and this one definitely did. And we had almost 300 people in our inaugural year across 4 courses. Next year, we're expanding to 6 courses. The year after that, we're expanding to 8 courses. We already have all this mapped out. So we'll have over 400 people. Central Massachusetts has 3 of the top 40 courses in the world. We are absolutely a destination for disc golf. And the AM side gives everybody an opportunity to come here and play a lot of those courses. I'm stealing from Nate Heinold and making flex C-tier events the first Friday. And then on Friday, the first round starts at like 4 p.m. So you can travel in on Friday. You only have to miss one day of work. We're excited about it. And that is my new focus. My goal is to get that up to 1,000 players in the next 5 or 6 years. And the MVP Open obviously continues along and will be a playoff event. We're actually signed on we will be signed on for 26 and 27. So I'm not making a schedule announcement. I'm just saying the MVP Open will be on tour next year. And then Maple Hill is my other project, and it's been a 20-plus year project, and it's very, very fun to do. I have been very lucky in my life. Things that I do wrong end up working right some other direction, and I don't fully understand it. I genuinely don't understand why people are willing to help me so much. Maybe I fall down a lot, and so I need all the help. But throughout my entire life, I've had a lot of really good people help me up and help me along. And for some reason I get credit and I get to be on podcasts and get interviewed, but I genuinely believe I'm just a guy that tries a lot of things, and every once in a while something sticks in the mind and the soul of somebody else, and they're willing to make it work.
Terry?
Well, clearly our history goes way back. I owe so much to you. Disc golf owes so much to you, whether you think it's deserved or not. But to know one of my earliest memories of us interacting is you saying, hey, I love what you're doing with this video blog thing. Can I pay you to come out to Maple Hill? And that was when I think about some of the moments of my professional disc golf vlogging media career.
And that was the last time I paid you.
Yeah, at least on time.
In paper.
Maybe not. I think I got pizza and peanut butter that trip too.
Baby.
But just the fact that that was an early stage, in 2010. That was the beginning of my media side of disc golf, and to travel across the country to go to a big tournament and have somebody pay me to be there and be in front of a camera. Like I said, it was revolutionary to me, and it's started so much of our relationship, and I'll forever be indebted to you for that. And then just everything you continue to push forward with disc golf. We're all fortunate that you have these visions and that you're willing to jump after them and go after them. And even when they do fail or come up short or aren't the exact vision you want, that they've been transposed into things that move our sport forward. So we're all blessed and thankful to have you, and we all love you. And you know that, but we have no problem sharing that day in and day out with you. So we love you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Nate, thank you very much. Terry, thank you very much. Accept people where they are, and have a great day.
All right. Take care, pal.
That's Steve Dodge, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Steve. We look forward to talking to you many more times, and keep up with all the great work and all the great ideas. Win, lose, or draw, we'll be there for you, buddy. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Boy, Steve Dodge. That was an unforgettable conversation that I'm so glad that we recorded, mainly because of the fact that I don't actually think I've sat and talked with Steve for 3 hours straight like that. I definitely had those conversations like that you've had on the phone where they kind of go all over the place with ideas and things. But remember, I was a player at one point, and so my relationship with Steve was not contentious isn't the right word, but business-like in a way, right? He's running tournaments. I'm trying to make money and all those things. It wasn't until 2019 that sort of changed, but I've always believed in them. And there was a lot of things I found out today, especially triple disc. I did want to find out about that business in Virginia. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. One thing we didn't even touch on, and I need to start making notes for the next conversation we have. Obviously very statistical, very analytical. That's, was apparent, in his education, but then just, I think how much he applies that. I remember having conversations about, he's like, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And I was always like, I don't know. I don't care. Like, just truly from a stats perspective. And we didn't even touch on UDisc, the invention of UDisc, coordinating with UDisc to be, at the first stop of the Disc Golf Pro Tour to do live scoring. And then how live scoring completely reinvented the idea of how we could do a broadcast, because now we actually had statistical data. I have years of where I had a paper scorecard and I had to write down, okay, Macbeth took a 4 on hole 1 yesterday, and then he took a 3 on hole 1 the first day. And like, I'm handwriting these notes that then eventually UDisc made obsolete, because UDisc had all of that for us and live scoring did. So, I mean, there's that note. There's what he's doing today with having people pay him to volunteer at the tournament. What are you talking about? Like, you think about getting volunteers to your tournaments, and now he has people paying him to go work at his tournaments. Like, that's a whole nother conversation that could be had. There's so many more things that we'll be able to dive in with him, obviously, on a follow-up podcast in another time. But those are a couple right off the top of my head. UDisc, paid volunteers, and just the vision behind so many other crazy ideas. And another analogy I'll quickly say is, I always used to think like Chuck Kennedy's just embodies exactly what Steve does, in that Chuck Kennedy has thrown a million ideas against the wall, and phrasings and analysis, from a course design, from a scoring, from a rules perspective. And some of them stick. And I guess I feel like, and Steve's not like, it's not like he has a quota of like, hey, I need 1,000 ideas this year and we'll see which ones. I mean, he puts them all out there, but you're smart enough, you put enough ideas out there, and some definitely come to fruition and ultimately stick. And I feel like, and go figure, Chuck, very analytical, statistically driven, and has helped move our game forward as well. And we'll have to catch up with Chuck here on the podcast at some point because of his vision and the way he's shaped and molded disc golf in the ways that most people will never have any idea. So it's these big brains, Doss, that keep moving us forward, and you and I just get to be a couple of monkeys to talk about it from time to time, because what these guys are doing is incredible. And another note, the other note that I'm going to write down is lore. Like, here we all are talking about this stuff, and you said it best. I mean, the podcast is helping bring these stories to fruition and bring them to light and to kind of cement them. But even listening to Dodge talk about, well, steady ed and plastic at whammo and Jim Palmer, like, everyone has a slightly different angle, and let's get something, in audio, in video format. And it still might not even be perfectly right because disc golf's already 50 years old. But at least this could be some kind of tracking or basis or baseline for the stories that we know of today. Because in 50 more years, the stories are going to get even crazier. And that money that, Steve Dodge made on those ads is going to shrink down to $9 instead of the $13 or the $12 that we thought. So just so enriching, so fulfilling, and I'm glad we're here for it, pal.
Yeah, me too, buddy. And I do got to say, like, I wish we had more time to talk about Vibram. That's the one big thing I do want to bring Steve back and talk to him about, is just understanding sort of the business behind convincing a rubber company who makes mainly shoe soles to print discs. And then that was sort of a subculture for a long time.
Very much so. So clearly our 3 hours isn't enough, I think, is the point.
For basically all of our guests, I feel like 3 hours is never going to be enough, especially with the way you and I talk. But I do want to find out more about Vibram. A few big things that Steve just impressed me so much with is, the idea of doing it correctly is not correctly, but honestly, is more important than winning or losing. And I mean, that is something that I think is easily said and very difficult to execute. I think Steve's done a pretty good job at that. I'm sure he has times where he wish he would have done better. Stuff like that. We're parents, right? And we're raising kids, and you try to take the things you've learned and pass that on to them. And Steve just brought that up for me so vividly right there. I was like, man, God, that's so important, because a lot of times I always say, gosh, I just wish that I'd handled that moment differently. I wish that I would have just, while it might have been difficult for me, celebrated, say, another person a little bit better, or at least looked around a little bit and accepted the fact that I was a part of that story, versus being like, well, my story's shitty and I suck, and but whatever you're saying. So, and then of course Birdie, come on. He's got a game.
He's got a game name. They also have a game named Standby, which he
obviously find out about the other
to
ones.
A little bit. He's got another game called Old Biddies, which I've actually played as well, about a woman and her cats. So, I mean, he's never shy of innovating and keeping that fun, competitive spirit along with games and gamemanship and sportsmanship. It's clearly deeply ingrained in him through and through. So it was awesome to hear more stories. And hopefully some people have an even deeper understanding of Steve Dodge. Because if you haven't seen it already, there was once a meme that said Steve Dodge is a disc, and they were They were not saying that in fun, polite admiration. They were definitely saying it with a different connotation. And here he is, persevered, and disc golf would not be where it is right now. The Pro Tour wouldn't be where it is right now if it weren't for the things that he stuck his neck out for.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
I agree. And it is a business, and he was trying to have that business succeed. Obviously, that business was success for him would have been that he could see his daughters whenever he wanted to. But, it's still something that for the current time lives on. And even if it doesn't, it will influence the next thing. And the thing after that, and the thing after that, because we're, just like every disc golf basket, from the one that said he had invented to the last one of before the core of the earth freezes up and this place is no longer in existence, will be influenced by that first one. Exactly. And that's just kind of how it is. So, all right, T-Dog, I think we're calling this thing Out of Production. That was the Out of Production podcast. And till the next one, buddy. Can't wait for it.
All right. Thank you. And we'll see you guys at the next one.